There it is.
We did the recording there too, just.
Yeah, we'll push recording. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I mean that in all sincerity. I love to see the participation and hear from the community and the level of engagement, whether positive or negative, depending on how you view it. I think all engagement is good. So in all sincerity, thank you for coming and taking time out of your day. With that, we'll call the meeting to order. And you know what I didn't grab was an agenda.
No problem. So it's right behind you and it's on the screen here.
Perfect.
You can read that. So the first item up tonight is the short-term rental conditional use permit for 665 Spruce Way. This is a public hearing. I'll go ahead and read my staff report, then we'll give the applicant a chance to talk if they would like to fill in anything we missed. And we'll take it to that point. So Tim and Angie Prague are the owners of 665 Spruce Way. They're applying for a conditional use permit so they can list their property on the Airbnb web platform for short-term rental. The owners stay at the home on vacations. They allow family and friends to stay there too. When they retire, they want to live in the home and become full-time residents. The home has 7 bedrooms and has a maximum occupancy of 25 guests. It has a garage attached to the home and a detached garage as well. There's a long driveway to the detached garage. I'm going to switch over to a picture of what that property looks like. Okay. So they do have a really long driveway here. They also have a circular driveway in the front. They have quite a bit of parking. So this parking has at least 6 vehicles, like way more than that, but at least 6, and then a circular driveway for the additional parking. The owners manage the home and take care of any maintenance and cleaning needs. They take pride in the property and are committed to keeping the outside and inside in pristine condition. And I have been by the property multiple times and it always looks really nice. They do take a good job. They do a really good job with maintaining it. So Francis City began regulating short-term rentals in 2021. Before that, we didn't regulate them at all, but since then, we do regulate. They're permitted with the intent of protecting the integrity and characteristics of established land use districts. So we allow them with the conditional use permit, and we have that conditional use permit in place to make sure that they're meeting our standards. We do have additional standards for these short-term rentals. And we also just kind of want to keep tabs on them and how many we've had. And that helps us to make sure that they're operated in a manner that minimizes negative impacts on those uses on neighbors, public services, and the surrounding community. So I've already explained the process a bit. As with any conditional use permit, the Planning Commission may impose conditions that are necessary to mitigate the potential adverse effects of the short-term rental on neighbors and nearby uses. They do need to be related to our standards that are in the code. We do have quite a few standards already for conditional uses. So we already have rules about pets, that they can't create noise or other conditions that are out of character with the noise and conditions in the surrounding neighborhood. We just want to make sure that they abide by the noise ordinance and that they don't interfere, the pets or the occupants don't interfere with privacy of nearby residents. There's no trespassing, no disorderly or illegal conduct is allowed, no drugs or alcohol, illegal consumption of those. We also have requirements for about parking. On-street parking is prohibited. They can't have any occupants parking on the street. The number of the occupants' vehicles shall not exceed the number of bedrooms available. And all the parking has to be within a garage or on the driveway or other gravel or paved surface. So in this instance, the home has 7 bedrooms and the short-term rental occupants can have a maximum of 7 vehicles there. As we see on their site plan, they have plenty of parking to accommodate that number of vehicles. And so we can allow up to 7 vehicles at a time when they're doing a short-term rental. Also, I know that there have been concerns in the past, not necessarily about this property, but about other short-term rentals, about camping or a temporary facility. That also is not allowed. So no temporary structures or travel trailers would be allowed. If any of these requirements or conditions are not met, then we do have a way to revoke the license or the permit if we get complaints and we investigate and find that they're violating the requirements. So as far as my recommendations, I would recommend either approving a conditional use as is or approving it with additional conditions if you can see any that can be related to the standards and mitigate the adverse effects on neighbors and the surrounding community. Like I mentioned before, this is a public hearing, and we did give notice of the hearing. So that's it for me. Let's see, there's another plan here that shows that all the property lines and they're meeting their setbacks. So anyway, that's it for me. Do you guys want to add anything to that? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for looking over this. We read over all the stipulations and things that you guys want us to do, and we're totally fine with, you know, abiding by the things that you need us to do. So if there's anything else that you'd like to add that we can change or do better or whatnot, you just need to let us know and we'll comply. So that's everything for us.
Thank you so much. Real quick for the record, can you just state your name and your address?
My name is Tim Prague, 665 Spruce Way.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just trying to do my part, Suzanne.
Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, it is a public hearing, so I would like to open up public comment first. Everybody in agreement? Yeah?
Yeah, we did have one written comment. It's in the Dropbox, and it will be part of the record of the meeting. And that person was opposed to the conditional use.
Thank you. I did take the opportunity to read that. So with that, we're going to open it up to public comment. I'd like to keep public comment to a limit of 2 per person. The comments do need to be
2 minutes or
2 minutes.
comments.
Yeah, 2 comments. That's it. Then we're moving on. No, sorry guys. 2 minutes. 2 minutes per person. They do need to directly relate to the conditional use permit. So they need to be surrounding ways that you think this could impact or negatively impact, and your solutions for the permit or proposed solutions.
Okay.
So with that, I will open it up, and then if you hit the 2-minute mark, I'll just raise my phone, which is my official timer, and that'll be your cue to wrap it up, and we'll keep that process for all public hearings. But I don't see a big rush coming up to the front at this time. We have no public comment,
Other than the written one.
other than the written one.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to walk?
I could.
No, I'm teasing. All right. Closing public comment then. And with that,
I did have a question though, Katie. When
Yeah.
we had the one come before us on Oak Lane, and I think Mr. Christiansen had like stipulation or like a time of year that he was trying to fit that into a window. And then I think you came back the next month saying that we weren't allowed to have that.
Right, the city attorney looked at that and said it can't really be tied to one of our standards, or that it can't be shown that it mitigates one of the detrimental effects, so he didn't feel like it was a standard that should be considered.
Okay. That's the only question I
That was
had.
Or a condition, yeah, he didn't feel like it was a condition that was
You wanna go
something we
first?
should require.
Scott, would you like to kick us off with your thoughts?
Sure. I think that it's a permitted use with respect to this conditional use process. I think that the standards that are included as part of this process are appropriate, and in the future, in the event that there's any challenges, it seems like our applicant certainly would be prepared to mitigate any future challenges. So with that in mind, I would support moving forward with submitting this as is, once we've completed our comments.
Sure. Kip, do you have any?
I know the Pragues personally because I live right across the street, kitty corner, and they are wonderful people. And I really truly hope that they do retire up here. However, I voted against the last one because the Winter Olympics are coming, and I'm concerned that the entire neighborhood and/or Francis is going to turn into one large Airbnb, and I don't want to see that happen. So I voted no against it, and even though I personally do everything to help these people, I need to be consistent. I want people to know that they can count on me to be consistent, and so I will be opposing it.
Okay. Kim, do you have any specifics tied to the conditional use permit that you want to cite?
No, they do a great job of taking care of the home. The property's probably one of the best cared homes in the neighborhood.
Okay, so Kim, when we have a negative recommendation or giving something, an opposing view on a conditional use, we need to cite a reason that doesn't comply with the standards we have.
I just said that I don't want the neighborhood to turn into a huge Airbnb neighborhood.
Okay, so that to me sounds like a policy where we've already determined that this is a conditional use in Francis. We're not deciding whether it should be or shouldn't be. It is right now. So we can't set policy at this time.
What do you want me to say?
Let me read a letter from the city attorney. He wanted me to have this in my back pocket, just to be ready to go in case this came up. So, he said, let's see if I can find it. It was right up here.
Would you like a minute? We'll finish up.
I got it. He
comment.
said,
Oh, okay.
under the conditional use permits, hold on, let me back up. The planning commission's role is advisory. They make recommendations to the city council. Under the conditional use permits, the PC reviews the application for compliance, and if there are concerns on ability to comply, the PC should make note of those issues in their recommendation, which will allow the applicant to move forward in the process, whether it is a positive or negative recommendation. And then the city council, in their policy-making legislative roles, will either approve or not approve. So, just
Okay,
to
then-
reiterate what he said, that it's should be related to an ability to comply with the code we have.
Then I think that we should limit the number of Airbnbs that we have in our Francis City.
That would have to be a topic for another discussion because it's not on the agenda. That's what we have to stay true to what's on the agenda and the policy that's in place at the time. So like, if you want to change that policy, then we need to get with city council and have that put on for
The
us
agenda.
to review, for an
Right.
agenda to change city policy.
Yeah,
But as far
so-
as this goes, in order to have a negative recommendation, we would need to cite some specific reason that this isn't gonna meet the current code. That's all we're trying to do, if that makes sense. There's no need to comment or add more, but just in the future, that is the goal, is that we have to tie it to some sort of deficiency in city code.
So, and one thing, I will say that we are gonna be looking at this. We have I will discuss this later more, but we have a pending ordinance on our conditional uses, and we're gonna evaluate, and this will be included in that, whether we wanna keep allowing short-term rentals with a conditional use permit, or if we wanna change the process for that.
Okay?
So we will be looking at the policy on that, just not today.
What pending ordinances do we have?
So I will discuss it more later, because last time we had a recommendation on that. But just to answer your question, it's conditional use permits, commercial development applications, and city center development applications.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want my comment or do you want to go first?
Go ahead.
The only concern I had was that there could be 25 occupants at a time, and it seems like it could make it into kind of a party house, and that does make me a bit anxious for the neighbors. Could we add a condition that if they do have the maximum occupants available, that they would have to be like related, so it's more of like a family gathering place rather than like a party house?
I don't know that we could, because we already set in our code for this conditional use for short-term rentals, we already set the max number of vehicles, and I don't know that we've tied that to an occupancy. We could discuss that with the applicant, if they'd
Yeah.
be willing to look at like a max occupancy, but I don't think, like, setting a rule about relatives, I don't know how we would enforce that either.
Yeah, I don't know how we would enforce it either.
And
other
I don't
than
know
them
that we
just saying,
could,
like,
yeah.
on the website, on their listing, like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to like the full 25, they must be related. And them personally enforce it, just like on an integrity basis.
Yeah, or
Just
maybe like
because-
limit the number of, I don't know, I mean, I just,
Yeah.
And like,
It's hard
you
to
guys
set a
want to
condition
live in the
we can't
neighborhood.
enforce.
You already know your neighbors,
Yeah.
so I'm sure you don't want to have like tense relationships with your neighbors anyways. So like, yeah, that's a personal recommendation.
yeah, I mean, they're,
I guess, so let me just go. I actually was gonna say something similar in that this might be the largest one we've approved.
Yeah, that's massive.
And my fear is your ability to live up to the codes already stated at that size, but that's really not for me to manage. That was more of just as a courtesy to you guys. Like, I think it is a big house. I'm very familiar with it. I walk by it every day. I know your neighbors do. So, that's my only fear. So I think, that's for them to manage, not for us, because we've laid out size and noise ordinance and all that sort of stuff, like parking and
Yeah.
no street parking, and, I see what you're saying, and that was my first thought too, with 7 bedrooms, but I can't see any conditions that I can see in my mind as reasonable that we could add on, that are enforceable, because as a branch of city government, like, I'm not a fan of putting things in that aren't enforceable. I just think that's,
Yeah, I mean, it would, yeah, you'd have to go through the residents. When I worked as a planner, we did have a code for like multi-generational families living in a house, so that there couldn't be like, cause it was in a college town, it was close, and so like you didn't wanna have like 10 people in one house, and so there was like a relations clause in there, which is why I thought maybe we could add that, like, if they're related, then they could do this.
yeah, we do have a clause in Francis City Code similar to that, like, up to 4 unrelated individuals per household,
Yeah.
right.
just for normal residency. But, we didn't set any standards like that for conditional use. I think
Yeah.
it's something worth thinking about in the future with policy. I think that, we do have requirements, conditions already in place on noise.
Yeah.
So if there is an issue with noise, then there could be a complaint, and we could, we'll work through the process, and that could be even include up to revoking their permit
Yeah.
if we had to.
It just
So-
seems so ironic that we're about to like look at a hotel that I think is what, 90, 80 bedrooms? So like, and this could have the potential to having like a quarter of those rooms, right? But in one house, and so the irony is not lost.
Yeah.
Did you have more?
No, that's it.
Okay, well, all right, I would entertain a motion that is relevant to this code and application, I guess.
I'll motion that we accept the conditional use permit as submitted.
I'll second. Scott, you wanna start the vote?
Aye.
No,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, guys. Good luck.
Okay, and if you want to stay, you're welcome to. And anyone in the hall lobby that wants to come in, this is a great time. Let's just take a
Yeah,
minute.
come on in, folks.
and
Grab a chair.
switch it
Make sure you
up if
sign
we
in.
need to.
Get comfy.
All right. Just give that a minute to load up. It was working a minute ago, so
It's always the
hopefully
way.
it's gonna work. Let's see. There we go. Justin, whenever you're ready, just let me know and I'll move
Yeah,
on.
I think everybody's settled who's
Okay.
gonna be settled, so, with that, we'll take staff report on the Francis Highlands Commerce Center Hotel conditional use permit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just trying to get this a little bit better so we can see it. Okay. All right, this is the hotel that's proposed to be located at the northwest corner of State Road 32 and Lambert Lane. Parcel FT 610, it's 9.92 acres for the entire parcel. The hotel site would be a smaller piece of that. The parcel is in the commercial zone. The applicant, Harwood Development LLC, is proposing a 3-story, 69-room hotel as part of the Francis Highlands Commerce Center. Hotels are a conditional use in the C1 zone. The applicant submitted applications for a commercial development and a conditional use permit for the hotel. Both applications will be considered in this report. They do anticipate subdividing the parcel in the future and doing further commercial development. That's not going to be discussed too much tonight. We will examine those applications in the future, and they'll be reviewed separately. Also, as a reminder, we did review the concept plan back in September with the Planning Commission and October with the City Council. The general plan does provide quite a bit of guidance that could be related to this use, but I think most of you have already heard me read through it. So we've had this come up a lot lately, so I'm gonna do this a lot through my report, is just highlight the areas that are unique to this project. If you feel like I've missed something or wanna dive in, let me know and we will do that. So, the commercial zone was established to encourage commercial and retail development. Special approval procedures, landscaping requirements, and design guidelines are applicable in the C1 zone. So looking at the site plan, I'm gonna just stay on this landscape plan for a bit because I think it shows everything really clearly. This is the trash storage area up here, which is what we'll discuss first. It's enclosed, it meets our requirements, and so I feel like we should approve that, then it complies with code. Sure, yeah, and I can turn that up too. Thank you for letting me know about that. Just give me a minute.
Thanks.
Okay, is that too loud? Is that better? Okay.
Lindsay couldn't hear you online.
Okay, thanks for letting me know about that. And I turned it off, that's super helpful. Okay, so, trash storage looks like it complies, and so my recommendation there will be to approve it. Parking is the next thing we'll look at. They are required to provide 69 spaces for a 69-room hotel. That's the code requirement. They are providing 80 spaces, so, sorry, I think I got that up a little too high. I'm hearing feedback. Okay. So, they're providing 80 spaces, including 16 spaces for trucks and trailers and 4 ADA stalls. So this is, just for reference, this is behind the hotel. This is where most of the parking is located. These are the truck and trailer spaces here. So they have 16 of those. They have 4 ADA stalls. There's also some parking in the front of the hotel, which isn't right adjacent to SR 32. It's a little bit behind where they're planning a future building, so it's kind of in between that. They do have some ADA stalls. Most of the parking is planned behind the hotel, as I mentioned, and the parking plan complies with our code. They're exceeding our requirements for that. The site plan, Scott, city engineer, will go into that more, and he's the one that can make recommendations on that. I will say that they meet all of our setback requirements. Okay, looking at the landscape plan in a little more detail here. I don't know, it's kind of stuck on this one, so we'll just have to scroll up and down, I guess, sorry. So, we do have quite a few landscaping requirements. They have planned 89 trees. That includes 68 medium-sized deciduous trees, which is a mixture of oak, serviceberry, dogwood, and hackberry, 21 medium-sized evergreen trees, a mixture of cedar, spruce, and mugo pine. They also have deciduous and evergreen shrubs planned throughout development, as well as shrub grasses and perennials. So all around the building, the structure, they have some landscaping. They have, one feature here is the serviceberry on the back property line. They have a pretty good mix of deciduous, coniferous. One thing that we usually require for a commercial project is trees along the frontage. That is not something we need to worry about on this one because they don't have frontage on a public road. In the future, they will when they further develop this property. The landscape plan was designed using water conservation principles. For example, this ground cover is, forgot the name of it, but it's a biomeadow grass. And they also have shrub grasses and perennials. So it seems like they've done a really good job of considering native plants and what will thrive here in this area. It complies with our code, and other than like exactly hitting that 50-50 mix of deciduous and coniferous trees that's recommended, and that's likely because of their large tree buffer along the back. Other than that, it completely complies with our code. Okay, so moving on next to the architectural design guidelines. All right, so let's start on this one. These design guidelines are specific to the commercial zone. The requirement is that the treatment of building mass, materials, and exterior appurtenances shall create an aesthetically pleasing building and site that is in character with the proportions of other surrounding developments. Proposed developments shall be designed with a common theme that reflects the heritage and community of Francis City. Themes shall be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission and City Council and may include but are not limited to agricultural or mountain tourism. All sites of buildings shall receive equal design consideration, particularly where exposed to vehicular traffic and adjacent properties. Facade shifts shall be encouraged on structures with a width greater than 50 feet or at neighboring property lines. We also say that basic materials shall be limited to no more than 3 types, and that buildings within the development shall possess a similar architectural theme, and they shall be compatible with existing buildings in the C1 zone. The maximum height is 40 feet in the commercial zone. The applicant provided architectural renderings and elevations of the hotel. 3 stories with a height below 40 feet is planned. Facade shifts occur on all sides of the building. So let's take a look at these plans a little bit closer. So we'll run through these. These show all the 4 sides of the building. This is the front, south and north elevations, and then the west elevation. So there are facade shifts on all of those longer sides. All right. Also looking at the materials a little closer. Wood siding is going to be used, as well as, let's see, stone veneer, gray-white stucco, the composite wood like I showed here before. So let's move down. This shows all the different sides, this exterior stone, and then they have some black trim. So I think we got all those plans, okay. The architectural theme appears to be agricultural with modern farmhouse design, materials, and elements. This design theme ties in with the Route 32 development, which is planned nearby. The Premier Pet Lodge and Villages at Lambert Lane subdivision also utilize agricultural design themes. The Planning Commission should discuss whether the applicant has effectively designed an aesthetically pleasing building that complies with the design guidelines. Okay, moving on to outdoor lighting. Here's their plan for that. Just let that load up. Okay. So the proposed hotel lot is 2.13 acres, which allows up to 213 lumens. They're planning a mix of parking lot lights, so there's some lights out here and in the front of the structure, entrance lights and some decorative lights. A list of and quantity of outdoor lights is shown in the table that I have in my staff report. All the fixtures are full cutoff. These show what the fixtures look like. They all meet the requirements of being full cutoff. And they all are planned to be installed at a height at or below 18 feet, which is a requirement when adjacent to a residential zone. The total output planned is 212,271 lumens, below the maximum allowed. The applicant noted the outdoor lighting intensity will be reduced after 11 p.m. The code gives an exception to this requirement for operations that are open 24 hours, such as hotels. Like I said, they are planning to reduce their intensity. The outdoor lighting plan complies with the Francis City Code. All right, moving on to the conditional use permit. So that kind of wraps up my discussion on the commercial development portion. Now we're moving into the conditional uses. I went through a lot of detail last time on all the different standards that we're going to look at. I will remind you that the state code says that a land use authority shall approve a conditional use if reasonable conditions are proposed or can be imposed to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use in accordance with applicable standards. So that is the criteria that I look at when writing my staff report. Can we mitigate those detrimental effects? That's what I'm focused on when I evaluate a conditional use. As a note, the city planning and legal staff are in the process of revising the city code to bring it into compliance with recent changes from the state legislature. When state law and city code conflict, state law prevails because of the correlating supremacy clause in the Utah State Constitution. So if there's an area that conflicts, then we go with the state law. All right. So our code lists 12 different standards for review. My staff report is going to cover some of those standards. Scott will also discuss ones that are more related to the engineering side of things, like traffic. So the following potential reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed conditional use have been identified. Disruption of privacy, additional noise, outdoor lighting, additional traffic, decreased property value, and decreased enjoyment of the property. The proposed development is in back and center of parcel FT 610. There are several residential properties near the proposed hotel in the villages at Lambert Lane subdivision and on Lambert Lane. The nearest adjoining residential home is approximately 150 feet from the proposed hotel. All other adjoining homes are approximately 500 feet or more from the proposed hotel. This distance will significantly reduce the potential detrimental effects of privacy, noise, and lighting for nearby residents when they are in or near their homes, the location where they are most likely to spend the time while on their property. However, some mitigation measures should be taken to reduce the impact on adjoining existing residents at the back of their property closer to the proposed hotel. Okay. Let me go back to that landscape plan. Oh, wrong direction. Okay. So, just to review this again, the applicant is proposing an 8-foot tan composite fence along the western property boundary adjoining residential properties. So right now we're looking at the fencing, screening, and landscaping buffer standard. A landscaping buffer of raised berm and serviceberry trees is planned along the fence line. Additionally, outdoor amenities, balconies, and opening windows on the backside of the property were eliminated to ensure existing residents' privacy. The applicant's plan for fencing, trees, outdoor amenities, balconies, and windows will mitigate the detrimental effects of disruption of privacy, additional noise, and outdoor lighting. So they've taken significant steps to reduce those detrimental effects. They have, said we're not going to do any balconies, we're not going to have any opening windows. Outdoor amenities won't be in the back. That will help protect the privacy. The next area we'll look at, the next standard, is signage and lighting. So first, looking at the signage. Let's see. So this is the wall sign that they're planning. This is the monument sign. We'll start with that. The applicant is planning a monument sign and a wall sign for the hotel. Both of the signs comply with the signage code. So a monument sign can be 6 feet in height, maximum, and 60 square feet, measured from the farthest extent of the sign to form a rectangle. So that meets the requirements. They meet the code there. They're using a wall sign as well. It's gonna be on the front of the building, not on the back. There won't be any signage on the back of the hotel. And then this one also meets the code for wall signs, which are not to exceed 30 square feet, measured from the farthest extent of the sign to form a rectangle. The sign can't extend above the wall, and it can't protrude more than 12 inches from the face of the pan. So this looks to me like it complies. I don't anticipate any detrimental effects from the planned signs because they do comply with code and they're on the front of the building. Looking at the outdoor lights, which we already discussed as part of the commercial development, so I'm not gonna spend a ton of time there, but they did fall below their maximum number of lumens, so they comply with the number of lumens that we allow. All of their fixtures are full cutoff. Lights are directed downward, and that will help reduce the impacts on neighboring properties. Our code gives an exception to having to reduce your lights after 11 p.m., but the applicants have noted that they're planning to reduce lighting intensity from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So the applicant's plan for fencing, a landscape buffer, and reduced lighting intensity during late hours will mitigate the detrimental effects of outdoor lighting. All right. Next standard we'll look at is noise. We do have a noise code in Francis City. You can have up to 70 decibels between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Sunday. 55 decibels during the nighttime hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 9 a.m. on Sunday. We did a noise disturbance study. Concluded that the detrimental effects of additional noise can be mitigated with the applicant's plans for a privacy fence and a landscape buffer on the adjoining residential property line, restricted daytime delivery hours, low decibel HVAC units, and the elimination of outdoor amenities, balconies, and opening windows on the rear of the building. Okay, the last standard that I'll look at is property values and property use of adjoining owners. I forgot to mention this earlier, but this report was co-written by me and the city attorney. This was one section that he kind of focused on. He said that the city has no specific evidence of property value changes associated with this project. A review of literature on the impacts of commercial development on nearby residential is inconclusive. Residential properties border the project on the west. The site plan has mitigation with fencing and landscaping to reduce noise and lighting impacts, and the applicant has agreed to additional conditions so the impact complies with the city code. The residential homes are all at least 150 feet from the hotel. This project is facing State Road 32, which is the largest and most traveled road in Camas Valley. It is also located in the commercial zone, which was created to encourage commercial development with access on the main arterial road. It is not unreasonable that development would arrive at this location. Other commercial projects are located near the State Road 32 and Lambert Lane intersection. There are no commercial or city center zones that are not abutting, adjacent, or across from the street from residential areas. So the recommendation is this proposed project will not prevent any of the uses currently surrounding the project, but will bring increased traffic, noise, and lighting. These anticipated increases can be mitigated with measures taken by the applicant and the conditions proposed by staff. So just to reiterate, all those standards, staff feels like we can mitigate all of those standards. And all of those detrimental effects can be mitigated. Not completely eliminated, but mitigated doesn't mean eliminated, it means limited. All right, so I'm gonna go through my recommendations. For the commercial development, we have trash storage. This is an approval or denial by the planning commission. I recommend approving it because it meets the code. Parking, I would recommend positively recommending approval of the parking plan to the city council. Site plan, positive or negative recommendation. Follow the city's engineer's recommendations. Landscape plan, this is another one that the planning commission approves or denies, and I would recommend approving it because it meets our requirements. As far as architectural design, you can have a positive or negative recommendation. Discuss whether the applicant has effectively designed an aesthetically pleasing building that complies with the design guidelines. And then the outdoor lighting plan, that's a positive. I would recommend a positive recommendation because it meets our requirements. Okay, moving on to the conditional use permit, and I will pull all this up when it's time to make a motion so you can see the list here for all of these things. I recommend a positive recommendation with the following conditions. There's 8 conditions here. The first one is an 8-foot composite privacy fencing on the western boundary. 2 is raised berm and serviceberry tree buffer on western boundary as shown on the landscape plan. 3 is deliveries only allowed during daytime hours, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. 4, installation of low decibel HVAC equipment. 5, elimination of outdoor amenities, balconies, and opening windows on the rear of the building. 6, reduced lighting intensity during late hours from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. 7, no parking signs on Lambert Lane. And 8, any additional conditions recommended by the city engineer. So the conditional use permit is a public hearing. The commercial development is not a public hearing. We did notice the public hearing in accordance with state and local law. So that's it for me. I think Scott has something. I know the applicant has some things to present.
Katie, can you
Yeah.
hurry and differentiate between the conditional use permits and the commercial development, how they're number 3 and number 4 on the agenda?
Okay, so, in our code, everyone that wants to build in the commercial zone has to do a commercial development. So, that's all of those landscaping, trash, storage, architectural plans. No matter what the project is, if they're developing in the commercial zone or the city center zone, then we review, we have a higher level of review for those than we would for like a residence. So that's why we look at all the architecture, landscaping. Some of the uses that are listed in the code are what we call conditional uses. So hotels are a conditional use, which means that it's allowed with conditions. So we can, because we realize that these uses have a higher impact and possible detrimental effects, we can impose conditions related to the standards that will help to mitigate those detrimental effects. So that, like if we had, trying to think of like if we had a veterinarian office, just for say, come in and they want to build, or a cabinet shop, we had one of those recently. That's an allowed use in our, just allowed. And so we don't impose any additional conditions on those uses. They're completely allowed. And we just look at the architecture, the landscape, do they meet the code? And that's, if they're allowed, they're allowed. With the hotel, for example, we also do that whole commercial development portion, but we can impose some additional conditions if we feel that it will mitigate the negative detrimental effects. So, does that explain it? Yes. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we've reviewed the site plan. As far as the water and sewer go, they're going to connect to the water and sewer lines in Lambert Lane. The sewer system and water system that we have when we went out on our 20-year plan, we included some commercial development. So right now, we have the capacities to accommodate this development. As far as the roads go, They're proposing to have the road inside the development be a private road. Those roads need to be constructed to meet city standards, whether they're public or private. One thing that we're recommending is that we install curb and gutter inside the subdivision and sidewalk. Summit County is proposing a trail that runs from Camas to Francis along Highway 32. This would allow people going along the trail to get into the development. You know, once more commercial stuff comes, they can get into it, but it'll allow people to get around the subdivision as it happens better. So one of our recommendations is that they install curb gutter and sidewalk in there. They did do a traffic study. The traffic study that they did looked at the hotel plus the future development. It did recommend some turning lanes and things on 32 and some improvements to Lambert Lane and things like that. But it was looking at the entire development, so we need to kind of look at it and see what improvements we want to have done now, and that'll kind of be done in conjunction with UDOT. UDOT will require some stuff on 32. So those are some things that we need to look at. How much do we want them to do as part of this hotel development or as future development comes along? The storm drain, they're proposing to detain the water on site, and they will release the storm drain into the adjacent wetlands. That's when this whole development was envisioned, part of the commercial and the residential. The wetlands were gonna be tied together and the storm drain would run through that. And they just need to work with the irrigation company to get permission to discharge into the ditch system once it leaves the wetlands. But they will detain their water on site and then release it at a historical rate, the same rate it was as if it was left the way it is. The water would continue to run off this property through those wetlands and then through into the ditches. We put culverts underneath Village of Lambert Lane Road to accommodate that when the subdivision was built. So that's what we're proposing for the storm drain.
Will the water be treated at all before it runs into the wetlands?
Yes, yeah.
How?
They've got some bioswales and things that we do to do that, so. Yeah, that's one thing we'll look at, make sure that it's all cleaned up and done. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it for me for questions.
I have one question. Do we know, or is there a plan that's been established with respect to that UDOT, or actually the county plan for the trail? The trail currently exists north of Camas on the east side of the road. I wonder about trees and things of that nature on this side of the road that then have to be removed when this trail comes through?
My understanding
If
right
that
now
happens.
is the trail's gonna be on the west side of the road, on this side of the project. That's why I've got in there that we need to plan on that trail being in front of their project.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, so the applicant, it's your turn to come up. Would you like, I know you have a video. Do you want me to go ahead and play that first? Okay. All right.
Welcome to the Francis Highlands Commerce Center, a vision designed to bring new opportunities, businesses, and services to Francis City. I'm Wes Harwood, and I'm the CEO of Harwood Development, and I want to take you on a journey through what we have planned for this incredible space. We understand that responsible development means working within the environmental and regulatory guidelines. That's why we've taken extensive steps to ensure full compliance with local and federal regulations. We have worked closely with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and made sure that there's a comprehensive wetlands delineation process that has been completed and verified. And these areas are not federally jurisdictional, which basically means that we can develop responsibly while ensuring proper mitigation. Our goal is to enhance the local economy while preserving the character of Francis City. We're creating a thoughtfully planned development featuring a hotel, restaurants, retail spaces, and essential services to meet the needs of our growing community. This isn't just another commercial project. It's an investment in the quality of life providing convenient access to businesses, dining, and retail while maintaining the beauty of the Camas Valley. One of our top priorities is strengthening the local economy. The Francis Highlands project will create jobs, attract businesses, and increase local revenue to support public services and infrastructure. We are also focused on smart growth, ensuring that what we build aligns with the needs of Francis City while respecting the rural character of the Camas Valley. This project will provide much-needed services like grocery stores, banking options, and restaurants, reducing the need for residents to travel outside the Camas Valley. I'd like to take a moment and go over the Francis Highlands site plan. And here's the site plan, and you can see on the right-hand side by the red arrow, it shows that there is a total of 80 parking spaces. Code requires 70, so the site plan currently has 10 spaces more than code requires. And if you notice in the rear, there is actually truck and trailer parking. So there's a great ability for guests to get in and out. You also notice there's a great flow coming from Highway 32 to the back of the hotel, and there's ample parking all around the hotel. This is the landscape plan. I think what's important here is to note that on the back of the property, there is a large amount of buffering that's taking place. There's a raised berm. There's also an 8-foot fence, and there is very tightly, densely planted evergreen trees on the rear. And then this final shot shows the overall site plan. Again, it shows there's great circulation coming in from Highway 32. There's also 2 exits out to Lambert Lane, and it shows that the entire site just has great flow and circulation overall. We understand that growth can bring concerns, and we take those concerns very seriously. It isn't just about development. It's about making sure that this project works for the community and not against it. We've engaged with residents through public meetings and individual conversations to hear their thoughts on traffic, environmental impact, and the character of our town. One major concern has been preserving Francis City's natural beauty and small town feel, and we are fully committed to protecting what it takes to make this area special. To address these concerns, we have worked to ensure that Francis Highlands will integrate seamlessly into the surrounding environment. We've also incorporated architectural guidelines that maintain the charm and character of Francis City. One of the concerns that we've heard is traffic impact. We have been working very closely with city planners and engineers to ensure that our designs support smooth traffic flow, walkability, and safe access for both vehicles and pedestrians. Another big concern we've heard is lighting. People do not want excessive light pollution that takes away from the natural beauty of the night sky. We completely agree. That's why we are implementing dark sky compliant lighting designed to minimize glare, reduce light pollution, and maintain the night sky's visibility. Our fixtures will be warm toned, downward facing, and strategically placed to provide safety without over illuminating the area. Another major concern we've heard is about buffering, how we ensure a smooth transition between this project and surrounding homes and open spaces. To address this, we've designed significant green buffer zones, incorporating landscaping, trees, and natural elements to provide a visual and sound barrier between the development and residential areas. This ensures that the Highlands project blends rather than feeling intrusive. We know that architecture matters. We don't want this to feel like a massive, out-of-place commercial project. We want something that fits into the character of Francis that we can all be proud of. We have designed the Highlands project with a mountain town aesthetic, using natural materials, timbers, accents, and stone elements that complement the existing character of Francis. We're also creating a walkable, community-friendly environment, not a strip mall, but a well-planned space where people can gather, shop, and enjoy their town without losing the charm that makes Francis and the Camas Valley as a whole feel special. This isn't just about development, it's about doing it the right way. We're listening and adapting and working together to make sure this project serves Francis City while protecting its identity. It's a vision of what can be, where roots run deep, dreams take flight, and growth is measured not just in size, but in strength, spirit, and community. I'd like to take a moment and share the market study that was done for the Francis Highlands. In the introduction, they pointed out that the property should be operated as an upper mid-scale hotel and be franchised with a central reservation system that is fully integrated with a recognized marketing platform. And basically what this means is because the hotel is franchised, it gives it a much higher probability that it will succeed. In the executive summary, it points out that this hotel will create between 12 and 18 full-time jobs for the Valley, and it also creates over $20 million of economic impact over the first 5 years. And finally, in conclusion, it recommends that the property size should be between 70 and 90 rooms, which basically points out that there is only room for one hotel in the Camas Valley. We're here at the Best Western Plus in Heber City, Utah, meeting with our partner Kevin Henderson, and we're gonna find out what his vision is for the Francis Highlands Hotel and have him share some of his experiences as a local, family-owned and operated business, which is focused on rural communities. Hey, I'm Kevin Henderson. Welcome to our hotel. As Wes mentioned, this is a family-owned business. We've been in operation for 7 years here in Heber Valley. This property is the result of 25 years of hospitality experience, primarily operating in rural communities like Heber Valley, Roosevelt, Vernal, Price, and soon to be Francis City, Utah. One of our favorite things about operating in rural communities is the ability to provide an awesome lodging experience that's not available in these smaller towns. We love that we have a great relationship with community leaders, community members, and then we're able to bring a valuable asset to these smaller communities like Heber and Francis. You know, something I don't think people realize when they see a Best Western hotel is that all Best Western properties are locally owned and operated. So all of our hotels, we're frequently in, we manage, we build them from the ground up, we design them, and there's a lot of thought and detail that goes into these properties that are specific for the communities that we operate in.
Hey, my name's Dave Deal. I'm the COO of Harwood Development. Behind us, you're looking at our Route 32 project. This is Building 8 going up right now. We're catching a lot of momentum. We're super excited about it. This project is going to be one of the newest additions to Francis City in the commercial sector. We have 8 buildings in this project that are slated. We've got a mix of flex space, retail, and also restaurants going in here. Currently, we have 3 LOIs, which are letter of intents for local people that are wanting to bring their businesses. And we're going to be talking and interviewing one of those local companies that's in the manufacturing space. And this is really going to be a major value add to Francis City. Beyond the tax base that will come from this and be able to go towards the public uses, maintenance, and that kind of thing, the tax base is huge for Francis City. There's not a lot of commercial buildings here now. And so this is going to be a great project for the city. We're super excited about it. And as a resident and somebody that lives here, I'm also super excited for the type of businesses that are going to be in here that my family can come and support.
Hi, I'm McKinley Fitzgerald. I have a manufacturing company. You can see the pieces behind us we've designed and fabricated for this structure here, and we're excited to be actually moving our operations here to Francis in part of this building that you see behind us. We focus on the production and manufacturing of light gauge steel, and we focus on affordable housing. We're excited about the opportunity to bring more jobs here to Francis, to support the local community, and use Francis as a hub for our manufacturing businesses to support the cities that surround.
Hi, this is Brendan with Humana Ventures. We're excited to talk about the new hotel coming to Camas and how it'll impact us. Right now, we're excited because people always ask us, like, where can we stay? That's close to you. Well, now you can. You can stay 5 minutes from us. The next thing you know, you can be on top of the world or be on a stall build, seeing the winter landscape, zipping through a meadow, and we're excited. We're here at the South Summit Fire District talking with first responders who help keep the Camas Valley safe every day. As Francis continues to grow, supporting our police, fire, search and rescue, and emergency services is more important than ever. It's vitally important that projects like the Francis Highlands are planned with public safety in mind. We're not just adding businesses and jobs, we're making sure new development helps fund the services that keep our community safe. One major way that the Francis Highlands will help is through increased tax revenue, which provides critical funding for fire, EMS, and law enforcement. We also recognize the need for strategic planning, ensuring that new businesses and visitors don't create unnecessary strain on emergency response. To ensure emergency preparedness, the Francis Highlands is being designed with fire safety and first responders in mind, including well-planned access points, fire hydrant placement, and traffic flow to avoid congestion in an emergency. We're also building with modern fire-resistant materials and advanced safety codes, reducing risks and helping first responders do their jobs more efficiently. Public safety is a top priority, and we want to ensure that every step of this project benefits the first responders who protect us daily. We are grateful for the incredible work that the South Summit Fire District does, and we're committed to working hand in hand with them as Francis City grows.
I'm Scott Thorell, Chief Scott Thorell of South Summit Fire Protection District. We have just taken responsibility for our own EMS, and we are employing 4 full-time people each day who are dual qualified in fire and EMS operations. And we still supplement from on-call personnel within the community to accomplish our mission. We can't put a fire out with 4 people, so we still rely heavily on the spirit of community and the people's dedication to helping their fellow man through their service to South Summit Fire District. It's challenging. We have a gigantic area and a lot of serious calls and not a lot of resources.
These are our frontline apparatus for our new full-time employees. Frontline engine will have 2 people, and our main ambulance will have 2 people. New concept to us. This is our new tiller that we've gotten, a 100-foot stick. We'll be able to provide elevated stream, fire calls, also expands our rescue abilities. This is a 3,000-gallon tender that we have. Pride and joy pieces of the department. Being a rural fire department, we rely on these tenders to bring us water when there's no hydrants available.
This is more than just a development. It's a partnership with the people of Francis City. Your input matters, and we invite you to share your thoughts and ideas with us. We want this to be a project the whole community can be proud of. Our door is always open for questions, concerns, and ideas, because at the end of the day, we're building something together. Thank you for being a part of this journey, and we can't wait to bring this vision to life with you.
Nope, hang on. Wes goes first. Or Wes doesn't go first if he doesn't have anything else to add, but usually the applicant gets a chance to respond first. Oh, you are?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, I thought he was one of the, anyway. I do remember, he does look familiar.
Cut your hair, Andy.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Good evening. It's exciting to be here. My name is Josh Call. I helped present the concept plan here a few months ago. First off, I just want to thank staff for the very thorough review that was done on the applications. We do a lot of development all around the state. It's always funny to see when you get a thorough review come back. Some developers turn away from it and they don't like it. We appreciate a thorough review because it does help a project to be better in the long run. And so we're grateful for the time and everything that was put into the review, the process, the application. And grateful for your time here as well. Real quick, I just want to kind of hit a few topics that we've already seen covered through the staff report, also through the video, but just kind of emphasize them. When I stood here a couple months ago, I expressed how change is different, change is difficult, change is hard, but we want to be an open and transparent developer. We want everything that we do to be out there. We want to listen, and we want to try to facilitate all the things that we can. Anything that we possibly can, we want to do it. I think our application speaks for itself. There's a lot of things that we have put in. We don't necessarily view them as making, making concessions. We believe fully that by listening to the public and taking back that feedback, we're able to come up with a really good product. Real quick, just kind of to hit on a few things that were brought up in conceptual. Parking was a concern. We heard parking was a concern over and over. Where are people going to park? Are they going to park on Lambert? Are they going to park out on the highway? That will not happen with this development. We have ample parking already shown on the site plan. Plus, I want to mention we are only currently developing 2 of the 10 acres that we have. In the event that there is some sort of issue with parking in an area where they're not supposed to be, we have the abilities, the resources, the land to come up with a temporary solution and also permanent solutions, but we don't see that as being a problem. All the guests in the hotels will not be allowed to park in public areas outside of the development, and that's going to be a rule that they know about. If they violate it, then whatever it be, the ticketing, the booting, towing, whatever it is, we support, because we are not gonna have our guests staying where they're not, or parking where they're not supposed to be parking. I believe we've been very thorough with the landscape buffering. We've got a berm that's raised, we've got an 8-foot privacy fence, we've got lots and lots of trees. And another thing that I think is very important is in the nighttime, the main entrance to the hotel is facing away from these residential areas. It's facing to the east out towards Route 32. The trail, we know about the trail. This hotel is set back from Route 32, so we don't have really any improvements except for the entrance off of Route 32 that would have any real conflict with that trail coming in, and we've kind of already started to begin the process of putting that trail in a really good location, and then allowing our site to access to that trail. So anybody that is walking on the trail can have access into the site and can get to the hotel amenity and the future amenities that you saw in the video that we see in the future, stores, banks, things of that nature. To speak on the stormwater, we're proposing low impact development ideas. Vegetated bioswales is very, very popular and a very good and effective way to treat stormwater. Every landscaped area we have is depressed, and so it will collect stormwater. Then we'll have plants and treatment available there that helps clean out some of the things that allow sediment to filter out. And so it's a really nice product that is, it's a visually pleasing aesthetic, but also it's functional. It's a vegetated bioswale. It's a very nice way to handle stormwater. Utility compliance, one of the things I did want to mention is in our first phase, we're going to connect to the culinary water line that comes out of Village Drive. So we're already going to introduce some redundancy and some looping that's available with this hotel. And so, you know, and really just expressing that we're here to listen. We feel like we've taken all of these comments that we've gotten and we've tried to associate and implement as many as we could. If there's any questions about the civil or the site plan, I'm more than happy to answer them, or anyone of our team can answer them, so.
I just have one real quick question. In the video, you mentioned that there's going to be 2 accesses onto Lambert Lane, but the site plan that we have for review only has 1.
Correct, sorry. In the future, we do envision.
So that's what I was wondering. Are we planning on building both now? Or?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Correct? Not at this point. We'll only be having the 2 ingress egress, one off of Route 32 right there that she's highlighting. And then we'll have the one a little bit further down. There you go. Yep, that's the current access points that we'd be doing. That's about 160 feet set back from Route 32 and Lambert Lane at that intersection.
So this will be a future
Build out, we would anticipate having a connection point there. But as of this moment, we're only planning the 2 ingress egress. Thank you for bringing that up. And I apologize for the miscommunication.
How tall is your berm going to be?
Right now, I believe we've got it set at 3 feet.
3 feet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just wondering, because on the site plan, it says that there's gonna be the storm basin right in front of the berm, and it doesn't look like there's a ton of space left for the berm. So it says to reference the berm on the landscape plan, but there's no berm indicated on the landscape plan that I can see.
Okay. Yeah, we can provide a much clearer detail showing that berm. And what would probably be helpful to Planning Commission and City Council would be to show the berm, the fence, and the stormwater detention as well, so.
Go ahead. If you have more, go ahead, ask him.
It's about the sign.
Okay,
I'll go back to the sign page.
I may not be able to answer the sign, so I might have to defer it, but
Totally fine.
monument or the building sign?
Either, do they have to be reddish, maroon? Can they be made to match the building more?
That's with the franchisor. Yeah,
Okay.
that's outside of everyone's control. Those are legal requirements under the franchise agreements.
I
for
figured.
trademarks, so.
even if we have design standards for our signs. Just kidding.
No red sign.
I know, it's too late.
Is that it?
For now.
I just had one question. Sometimes pictures are helpful. Is the fence is going up, the fence, the berm, the buffer, I guess, between the residential zone? You're gonna do the whole thing?
Along the entire western edge, yes.
Okay,
Says-
and then just the picture has the trees, which this is probably just an oversight, but would it be possible to do all the trees so that we block the houses as well, all at the same time? Like, let's just set the boundary,
Okay.
then it's done. Cool. That was my only landscape question, which is rare that I have a landscape question.
Can I follow on with that a little
Sure,
bit,
yeah,
just to
yeah.
make sure, because I was having the same thought, so I just wanna make sure I
Yeah.
understand. So in this document, on the very first, or second page, the first one that has the picture, and incidentally, I wanna thank you for the quality of this presentation with the different perspectives. It makes it very easy to understand exactly what this is expected to look like. So in this one, the second page here, it shows the entire fence line in place on the west side and on the north side as part of this project. Is that planned?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then here in this picture, it shows trees installed only to the west of the hotel property itself and nowhere else. Whereas in my mind, similar to I think what you were thinking, the mitigation on the privacy side of things really does apply to the project as a whole. And so to be able to get, at a bare minimum, the western, northern, and southern sides of these tree lines, and is that what you were basically talking about?
Well,
Is the entire,
So my
all four
concern,
sides?
my primary concern is the proximity on the west, because I do think that is the home that's referenced as the closest, right? So there's no
Correct.
trees between, and the update says there's no opening windows in the back, but there's still windows.
Okay.
So my thought was if the west side was completely landscaped at that buffer zone, that's good enough for me because there's really gonna be minimal windows to the north and south. in
So
that.
if you take a look at in
Did
the
I-
same packet, right?
Did I
The
miss something?
second to the last image shows what also might be the closest property, which is on the north end. So the other ones don't show it, it's cut off, that northern residence.
Yeah, I know, you're talking about the teakwood houses, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken.
and to me, they similarly have concerns with respect to privacy, right? And by getting those trees growing now and in place, it seems reasonable, particularly with that fence going in as well, to provide that same level of mitigation that we're seeing to the west to that one
To the north.
northern residence, right? I'm less concerned, there is if you consider like the eastern and western portions of the south side, I'm less concerned with the eastern portion of the south side where it fronts the veterinary office as opposed to a residence. But similarly, we have those trees as well, where it takes time for them to actually provide, you know, the level of privacy they will over time. And who knows how long it'll be before the plan as a whole calls for that.
Correct.
It could be
Yeah.
years.
Okay.
And so I think similarly, that's what you were talking about, right? So I would
Yeah, I
support
think-
that kind of a consideration along with that fence line on the west, or the northwestern and northern side of the project.
Yeah, we appreciate that feedback and we can work within those bounds.
Okay. Well, then there's no point in going over it.
Or you could change the orientation of the hotel and have it go north and south instead of east and west. And then you don't really have to worry about it, that third story looking into any homes, period.
Isn't there
Well,
a
there's
home to
homes
the
on
north?
both that north and south.
South.
Yeah, I don't know.
No,
I mean,
because you're
you're
gonna
right
have
here.
all those shops in the way of the north, and the south will be across from the veterinarian. Or at least it won't be in the bedrooms of the back of the houses on Village Drive.
Yeah, we've looked into different orientations of the building and we do feel like this is the most advantageous for access, ingress, egress, safety. And also the approach of the hotel, you know, having its facade with, pointing towards State Route 32.
What about a buffer in between the parking and the residential, like a 50-foot buffer for the parking?
So behind the parking, we do have that, essentially the stormwater berm, the landscape, the trees, and then the fence. And then, you know, really the buffer that comes in is the distance all the way to the closest residence. You know, from the corner of the hotel by our measurement, it's about 275 feet from the hotel down to the house on Lambert Lane. So there is quite a big distance that's separating.
But that's the hotel and not the parking, and I consider the parking to be a 24-hour, 7-day noise issue.
Okay. So the site, with the constraints that we're working in with the site, I don't know if we have any more room to provide that buffer between the property line and that parking area, apart from what's already been, you know, set apart with that fence, trees, berm. But I do appreciate the thought, and it's not lost on us, for sure. I think that if we could facilitate that, it's something we would try, but I don't, with the layout, with how everything is puzzle pieced together, I don't think we can.
So you're not willing to move the puzzle pieces around?
If we do move puzzle pieces, we lose the parking,
You
and
guys
then
can
our
all talk.
concerns that we don't provide enough parking, you know, of course, comes in. Yeah, come on.
Sorry, Kevin Henderson, Henderson Private Matt. Here's the deal. We build hotels. That's what we do. We build, we manage, we operate properties in rural communities. We have 27 years of experience, right? And so when you build a hotel property, we take into account where the sun lies on these hotels, north side versus south side. North side parking lots are a nightmare to maintain with snow. Also visibility, right? We want people to see our hotel. It's aesthetically pleasing to see the hotel on the highway side facing the highway. I understand the concern. If we turn the hotel north side, south side, it's still affecting a residence. From my perspective, we're meeting the setback requirements that the city's imposed, correct?
Correct.
The hotel is, but the parking's not.
Is there a
Well,
setback requirement?
There are only setback requirements for structures,
Yeah,
and you
so-
are meeting those by quite a ways.
Yeah, so in my perspective, we're meeting the requirement. I wasn't gonna get up and talk, but being the operator and owner of these properties, we're small town folk, right? We're not big developers. We're not people who come in with guns blazing. I feel like we've been incredibly responsive and respectful and attempting to develop a project that we can be proud of. And that the city can be proud of, and we're trying to do it in a way that is sensitive to the residents behind us, right? It's a commercial piece of real estate, it's a commercial piece of land that's been zoned commercial for quite some time. It's going to develop at some point. I'm not sure that changing the direction of the hotel is gonna make a difference, and the effects that it has on us as a business, changing that direction is concerning for me. I feel like we're meeting the requirements, the setback requirements, so, okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, I won't go too long. Normally, I'm a little more involved. Katie, so impressed. My name is John Rudd. I am counsel for Harwood Development. I deal in the legal aspects of these things. And the neat thing is I get to work with a lot of rural communities. Currently, I'm working a lot with Oakley right now, and I'll tell you, Francis, Oakley, they are top-notch cities. Whether I'm dealing with Stephanie Wolstenhume, Katie, I haven't dealt with Katie that much because Wes and Josh and their team have dealt a little bit more with her. I've met with counsel for this city, really enjoyed my meetings with him. And the way we look at this, just to answer, Ms. Lawson, some of the things that you're requesting, the way that we look at it, the way the law usually is interpreted with code for planning and zoning is the reasonable person standard. That's always required under the law, whether you're interpreting contracts, interpreting code, et cetera. The good thing here is that Harwood Development has gone to great lengths, mainly through the efforts of Katie, because she holds all of the knowledge of kind of what the city expects, interpreting the code, and she interprets it very reasonably under the plain meaning rule standard of it, which is the legal standard of how you have to interpret it, but also, I think, interpreting what the commission would want to see and what they would want to take into consideration. And so she kind of guides this process with Harwood Development. In this particular instance, let's just talk about the fence. I understand that buffer zone. The reasonable person standard here would inform all of us there are no structures within that buffer zone, so there's no expectation of any loitering or people being there for extended periods of time. With the height of the berm, the trees, and the fencing, all parking vehicles will be below the fence structure, or it should. So it actually should not complicate some of the issues that are being addressed here. And as we look at it, with the amount of buffering, the height of the fences, the height of trees, we get to see where reasonably we are mitigating a large amount of noise, a large amount of sight, just even, and that's not necessarily a pollution that we look at, but in my opinion, if I'm 100 yards away from something, which is a very considerable distance, sometimes of what I can see, I want it to be pleasing to my eye. If I can have those buffering zones reasonably from my residence, I'm also not seeing those cars because they lay below some of those things that are in that buffering zone. So we look at it that way. What we look at here when we're presenting for conditional use, we are looking to say, how are we mitigating reasonably under the reasonable person standard? And what we hope the commission is looking at is the same thing. Is Harwood Development reasonably looking to mitigate under some of the concerning factors that Katie had brought up? If there's something we can do better, something that is reasonable, that always needs to be taken into consideration. I think that the trees along that entire boundary back there, I think that's reasonable, as long as there's not laterals that need to be put in there, as long as there's not a lot of civil that has to be done after the fact when you're developing different parts. That seems very reasonable and something that can be considered. And so while we're working under that standard, I think that anything that may be proposed that is reasonable can be considered. If there are legal questions or legal concerns, that's where I get involved in my goal. And luckily I can say this with confidence, I have a great relationship with every single city, every single commission, council, and planner that I have worked with since I started in my legal profession, because we come in and we say we have to be reasonable and we want to mitigate any concerns. And so we start there. I think my 2 minutes are up, but I just wanted to let you know that if you have any concerns, hopefully you know that we'll be good to work with, but we've tried to mitigate up front to take into consideration some of those factors, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for the applicant before we open up the public hearing? And you will be able to ask them more questions later if they come up.
Would you guys be open to doing, I think it would be reasonable to do what Scott suggested and do the perimeter landscaping of the entire site, to have those trees start growing and have that landscaping start getting established, even if the rest of the site is not built out?
I guess, let me follow that up one question, because my concern with some of it, like, I'm with Scott, like, I think west makes a lot of sense, the west portion. I think north, I could see that, but I don't wanna plant trees that you then have to tear up when you go put in a grocery store. Or that we're gonna push down, right? So that's why I think like the perimeter that's on the backside, that's not on the street side, they're not gonna be cutting utilities in off of
No,
those.
but like
So-
the perimeter, what is it? I'm bad with
No, it's
directions,
okay,
but
here.
it's north,
This
this
is,
side,
this
and
is
this
north.
side.
Yeah, but if you start planting, in my opinion, and I am not a developer, but if you start planting trees in here, like, this is where the rest of the development needs to take place. I think even over here is kind of questionable, because what happens when they build this out? Like, where do they need to
Based
cut
on their
in?
site plan though, they've got a lot of parking buffering that.
No, and I understand that,
So
and
they've
that's why I think you could reasonably argue west for sure. I could say you could even add north and still be reasonable, but pushing it. But if you start going over here where we haven't even developed out, we have
No,
trails
no,
coming
no.
through, I don't think you
No.
need to do all the way around.
I'm not saying, yeah, yeah, I'm not,
so worried about 32 and Lambert.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
worried about the west, or I'm worried about the north, because those are the closest neighbors, and I'm worried about the west. not along the like outer street. I don't know, there's neighbors on that side too.
Well, there are, but I think the point, the reason that this becomes less important is if you flip to the south, there's 3 staircase, I've been in a few Best Westerns in my day. There's 3 staircase windows. They're not rooms. The only windows to the south are off the emergency exit. And I don't know, but I'm gonna take a wild guess that that's probably like a pool or a gym on the north side. Yeah, and so like, you don't have people sleeping in here. So like, that's when I think about this, when I think about reasonable, you have, I don't know, what is it, 70 rooms, potentially 69 windows in theory out the back. Like, that's where I think the west side makes sense to develop the whole thing, because he already has to run sprinkler there anyway to do the ones behind the hotel. So if we just ask him to do the whole thing, the trees are growing up. And then over here still has to be developed. So that's where I just don't see that you're gonna block somebody's gym view at 7 in the morning. Like, I just don't know. He's already got an 8-foot fence there.
Yeah, I mean, there's an 8-foot fence there, but the neighbors are closest on that side. And
Is that,
So one thing I just want to throw in is, there are neighbors on the west side, on the,
north.
more on the south side, right?
Yes.
Across Lambert Lane. There are neighbors on that side and the west side. I'm a little hesitant to require landscaping that's not on the hotel site, because this application is for this site.
got it.
That will be subdivided in the future, that is the plan, and a future owner, I mean, we don't all have a crystal ball, we can't say that what they're presenting here is exactly what's gonna happen. What they're applying for is this site. If they subdivide in the future and end up selling off some of those lots, is a future landowner gonna want that landscaping? I think we need to keep whatever landscaping we are looking at on this site and mitigate the concerns to adjacent residents as the first priority, and then look at, on that southern border, there's quite a buffer, like quite a space between.
I hear what
Between
you're
that,
saying,
yeah.
but that space isn't, like, that space isn't necessarily mitigation.
Yeah,
I can
well,
help with
let's
this
pull up, hey, can we
a
just
little
pull up
bit.
a,
Just on the city's
Parcel
request for the
viewer here.
application, we wanted to have the full application for the full development, but the city actually requested that it be parsed out. So only for the hotel to be submitted at this time. Also, if we were to install a tree and then go and try and install curb and gutter later, because we can't install curb and gutter at this time for everything on that back end, we may kill those trees just by trying to work there and install curb and gutter. So we don't want to do that either, but also these trees are 12 to 18 feet at plantation. So we are not, I know the concern is to get them growing early, but we are actually planting mature trees 12 to 18 feet high. And so we just want to make sure we're not held to a standard outside of what we should be for this, because it could create great financial hardship, and we would probably be killing what we put in outside of the acreage that we're getting approved today, because we can't do curb and gutter, on the polar ends. We can only do it for this development at this time.
How do you're planning on the fence line though? I think that was already established on the west and the north. Was that established or not established?
That will be done. Do you
Yeah.
have that in phase 1?
So we are showing it on the fence. So I believe the intent is to fence the whole, the west and the north side.
And the berm.
And the berm. The berm will go up to a certain extent until, well, yes, to an extent there will be a berm there, because the fence will be on top of the berm, yes.
yeah, on the west side, right?
Will
On
you
the
be-
west side,
Will
correct.
you be installing the fence all at once?
Yes, we'll do the entire west side fencing, and we'll do the north side fencing.
The concern I agree with McKenna on is that you've got this trailer parking right there in front of the fence, right? And an 8-foot fence isn't gonna hide a trailer. I get, you're gonna put the trees right there, but everybody else beyond that section of the trees is gonna be able to see these trailers
From where?
from Village Drive.
Okay, so when we're looking at mitigation, we identified the standards that are in our code that we mitigate to. So we're looking here, the buffer is noise, lighting, those kind of things. That's where this buffer helps.
I'm just bringing it up because Mr. Rudd said that
Yeah.
they were working on the visual
Okay,
as well.
fair.
And
But-
that's why I'm bringing it up.
But I did actually state that is actually not in the code as required for the buffer. I was just stating, you had a concern about the houses seeing the cars for parking because there were no structures there, but actually the fence line covers up most, any type of issues with site for parking. If you're worried about maybe a tall trailer, I mean, we could contemplate a lot of different things. There is no mitigation requirement or concern under the code for site, just to make that clear. But I was just trying to address your concern.
Is the fence on top of the berm or is the berm in front of the fence?
The fence will be on top of the berm to add the additional height.
Okay.
Essentially 11 feet.
Yeah,
11 foot.
roughly. I mean, that's,
Okay.
the
11.
berm will go, let's just, let's call it 11, but yeah, the berm will,
And then you're talking about an 18-foot tree
so.
on that berm or off of it mid-berm?
Off of the berm, yeah.
Eventually, all the way
Okay.
around.
So.
I would
it-
assume that you'd probably do like tiered landscaping, like have trees, then bushes, then maybe like some smaller shrubs in front or perennials. And so I don't actually think that there's a huge risk of the trees being killed with that layering, because we're not asking for, like, you to install complete, like complete landscaping, just do the trees. That's all I was asking, was just like if that would be a consideration. And then the other thing is that if we are just considering this site as an individual site, then I feel like it would bring up an argument of, okay, well, if we're just considering this site without landscaping on that north side, because eventually there will be some on the greater extent of the property, that then this individual site should have some landscaping on that north side. So that's just for the sake of argument. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Just why I would still maybe be more in favor of doing some perimeter trees, so.
Well, okay. I've lost track where we're at. Has everybody commented who wanted to comment and ask questions?
Yeah.
We're ready for public comment. Do you guys have any more questions of us?
Think we're okay. Thanks.
Okay,
Sorry, asked for an inch, got
A mile.
him. Train wreck.
are we ready for public hearing?
We are ready for public comment, but Katie, just like keep me honest here as I kind of lost track. This is about the conditional use permit. And the conditional use permit really is about the impacting things that you kind of discussed. I jotted some notes quickly, but that's about composite fence, the berm, the delivery times, low decibel HVAC, the non-opening windows in the back, the lighting being dim between 11 PM and 7 AM, no street parking, curbs and gutters essentially being mitigated per Scott prior to doing it, and then, and taking into consideration the coming trail. And that's really the scope of the conditional use permit and mitigating factors, unless someone can think of a mitigating factor that meets the reasonable person standard that we have not thought of.
Well, and we do have to stick to the standards that are in the code. So the standards that the code identifies that we can mitigate are
Correct.
size and location of the site,
Okay?
traffic considerations, Scott touched on that, utility capacity, he also touched on that, emergency vehicle access, delivery, service vehicles, that's brought up in my staff report on the conditions of limiting delivery hours to reduce noise.
Okay.
Fencing, screening, landscaping to separate the uses from adjoining uses, design, architectural detailing, building mass, bulk orientation, and those kind of things are considered, especially in relation to the requirements in the code for commercial development.
And those are all included in this public hearing? I have them
Yeah, I mean, they
separated.
can comment on all these things. These are things
Okay.
that, these are the standards we can, for a conditional use permit where we can set
Got it.
conditions, right?
Okay,
Signage, lighting, noise, and then there's some that have to do with air quality, and we didn't feel like those were applicable to this. So, though, again, just to remind, I think that what you're getting at is the anticipated detrimental effects that were identified by staff were disruption of privacy, noise, outdoor lighting, traffic, additional traffic, decreased property value, and decreased enjoyment of property.
Got it.
So those are the ones that we identified, and I think those are the ones that we should focus on mitigating, and that's hopefully what the comments will help us get feedback on that.
Got it. So with that, I'll kick off the public comment session with that in mind. I do limit to 2 minutes, and my goal is to keep us focused to the topics on those things. I realize I've had the pleasure of being here for a couple of years, and I have learned a ton. We obviously have a lawyer in the room who has probably spent his lifetime doing this, so I realize not everybody does that, so obviously we have some leeway. But what's most beneficial for us is when the comments are targeted towards the things that are within the scope of the planning commission. So that's really my ask. So with that being said, remember, state your full name, your address for us, then Suzanne won't yell at me. And 2 minutes, I'll raise my phone up, and I'll try and keep in mind that we're all neighbors. So, all right, go ahead. Public comment is now open.
I'll go first. Brian Moore, 1102 Village Drive. I actually have a question here related to the Best Western signage.
Yeah.
Is that a lit sign in the
I
plans?
would assume so, yeah.
And does that still adhere to the 18-foot rule for lighting?
So the outdoor lighting doesn't apply to signage.
To
or-
signage,
No, it
okay.
doesn't. That's like parking lot lights, wall lights, things like that.
Okay, yeah, that's unfortunate. My second question is really around the mitigation of property devaluation, rather.
Okay.
By your own admission, it sounds like that's inconclusive, so how can you mitigate something that you don't really have your hands around?
So I hate to speak for the city attorney who wrote that section, but I will say that he said there's no evidence. He did some studies and didn't find any evidence of that, of property devaluation. So when we evaluate these applications, we're looking for evidence.
Okay.
And when there's no evidence, then that's what his conclusion was. So, there you go.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
David Sutherland, 1162 Village Drive. I kind of have a more broad philosophical question really as to why we're even considering this application when it violates existing city code where you can't have a 24-hour business adjacent to residential. I understand that the council has indicated that they want to look at that code and probably get rid of it, would be my anticipation, but nonetheless, it still is on the books today, and so this project is not in conjunction, it's just not compatible with our code, so I don't see why we're considering it. In addition to that, the code also requires that the site plan is approved by this body as well as the city council prior to any grading or fill occurring on the site, and that hasn't happened, and there's extensive grading and filling going on the site, including beyond just the hotel parcel, which is being referred to as the site. I also want to talk to that this site is not subdivided yet, it is one parcel, and so I think your guidance that the landscaping should incorporate the entire site is extremely pertinent, because it is not just one isolated building on one isolated parcel, it's the entire parcel. And so if these office buildings or the grocery store doesn't get built, that's what we're left with, is a hotel in the middle of a graded field. So I think that needs to be considered. On top of that is this berm of 3 feet and fence of 8 feet on top of the 3 to 4 feet of fill dirt that is being placed on the site, or is that 3 to 4 feet the berm that we're expecting to get out of this? Their general plan doesn't really incorporate this kind of congruency. We've never seen a building of this magnitude in this valley. So I would request that the commission ask for these same amazing quality pictures, but from the perspective of the residents around the site, to see what we're looking at instead of mountainsides that we are used to. We're going to be seeing a very large building, which frankly, it looks pretty good aside from that west elevation, which is what we're going to be looking at. And there was a lot of mention about serviceberry trees and then evergreen trees. So which ones are on that west fence line, because service barrier only goes to 25 feet. Last comment, walkability, I appreciate the incorporation or anticipation of the Highway 32 path, but from a property value and livability mitigation standpoint, incorporation of a walkability or path along Lambert Lane would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. I will say the path on Lambert Lane is top of my mind, and they're all laughing and smiling at me over there. But I'm the path guy, McKenna's the tree woman.
They do have a land.
I'm Trevor Beck. I live at 162 Delaney Drive. I don't know what their plans are as far as the rest of the build out. But as a person who snowmobiles and pulls trailers, or I think you're gonna have a lot of horse trailers, things like that. If the rest of the build out doesn't happen, I'm gonna park in the dirt more than I'm gonna park in the designated parking area. So just ask the commission that you put in some condition to mitigate people parking in the dirt.
I think that's covered in our code, but go ahead.
So just some conditional use to keep people from parking in the dirt to bring mud out onto Highway 32 and Lambert Lane.
Thank you. Yeah, I doubt Wes wants his lot being a parking lot.
Well, I think Wes and I have had some conversations already about mud on the roads. He's been responsive in cleaning that up, but we do have a code requirement that you can't, you have to keep your materials on site. Scott, is that?
And the curb and gutter throughout the subdivision would help that too, from people pulling over the curb. They're not gonna say that they're not gonna drive over the curb to go over there, but it would deter a little bit.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I appreciate the comment, and I think we'll definitely keep.
Like when the hotel's done.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then you have somebody driving in a, a dirt lot and trying to park their big horse trailer there, and then, just leave it there and go, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Katie? Yeah, as the code enforcement officer, I really do appreciate that comment, because it's something I deal with a lot. Yeah.
I just still have this on my mind. Does our code currently say that 24-hour businesses shall not be in operation next to residential areas?
It's something similar to that, and I would point you to, there's a note in my staff report about requirements that are not objective, and I think that that would fall in, like, that don't meet the state law. And the state law requires objective conditions and objective standards, so that one, city attorney feels like.
What do you
we need to
mean by
work on.
objective conditions and objective standards?
Near, what is near?
Adjacent is pretty near.
Again, we have
Has to have a legal definition is what she's getting at.
it has to be like 200 feet.
Can we-
300 feet. I think this is something we absolutely will be looking at with our code.
What
with
does what does the current wording read?
Shall not be next to 24 hours.
Near.
Next to or near?
Near. Near.
All right, public comment, sorry, we were derailed here. We gotta keep this on track.
Yep, Jeff Altner, 915 Village Drive. I am the near, I think I'm the 150 or the 500-foot house, I can't remember, but Kenny make a great point. If that fence and trees aren't up, those windows are all looking out unmitigated into homes. Whether the site plan gets finished or not.
North or west, which one are you talking
If you look at
about?
that corner right there, and you look to the
This
house
side?
north or west, take a pick. If I'm in the room on the north side of that hotel, and the hotel site's the only one that has the fence, and I'm looking that way, you're looking in my bathroom window, basically.
Gotcha.
Which, joke's on you. I'm also in the wetlands where the water's currently being mitigated to. I've had more water in my yard this year than ever. They filled that entire lot, and all that water runoff, you name it, goes there. My horses eat that grass. My kids play in the grass. That's a huge effect of that neighborhood and surrounding area. I'm the one who sent the grammar request into the city about our public safety plan and was told that we don't have one. And that is a conditional use factor that is a detrimental factor to conditional use. I understand they said they would appreciate parking tickets and booting and support that, and we don't have anyone to do that. Our city planner does it.
Katie does it.
Right, who's
Well,
the
we'd
city
probably
planner.
employ like a towing company. I wouldn't be out booting
Sure, but
anyone.
there's no plan for that. We don't have police for that. We have no police,
So we do have police through Summit County.
I don't disagree with you, but when I filed the grant request, I was told there was none.
Well,
So
no, like, document to show that, so.
then I would appreciate that. If we're bringing in 2 hotels or 1 and 80 people, and I appreciate that it's a Best Western higher end, but people are coming that aren't, you know, we're having people show up and we don't have a plan in place. So I think as a city, that is a detrimental factor that we don't have that scoped out. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, you made it. I didn't even have to lift up my phone. Anybody else like to talk or speak to it? We have a lot of people here who haven't had the opportunity.
Hi, I'm Tina Early. I live at 2341 Spring Hollow Road. My concerns are lighting and noise. And you're gonna have parking spaces for 80 vehicles. There's gonna be that, I mean, how do you maintain that? Snow removal.
I think you need
That
to
incessant beeping.
address us, please.
Yep, okay. And
Sorry.
Sorry.
He doesn't
Well, I
get
won't pick
darts.
on you guys.
He doesn't get to have darts thrown at him.
Yeah, I know, but, I mean, that is my concern. It's like all of a sudden you're gonna have all these parking spaces. This is just one structure. When the property gets subdivided, and all of a sudden you have these other buildings in there, and then you're gonna have somebody, we get a blizzard at 2 o'clock in the morning. You have hotel guests. So, is there gonna be, you know, are there gonna be guys out there with backhoes and that beeping and beeping? And for the people that do live in Wild Willow, I mean, I think you're just gonna have a box with a bunch of little lights in it. And we are losing, I mean, I've lived here a long time, I've lived in the state for 50 years. This one line in here where there's only room for 1 hotel, I guess this is negating the hotel next door here. Because, I mean, that's 70 rooms as well. I live closer to this, by far, but the noise, the lights, I just, you know, just the whole ambiance of the valley. And as this gets larger and bigger, and there's gonna be more lighting, and more noise, and more traffic, you know, you did do a nice plan, but I kind of feel it's going to be a detriment. 9 acres of commercial, retail, hotel space. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm Jim Matthews, 554 Ash Court. Since we're limited to our scope.
I'm trying,
I'll
but
try to limit my
I don't
scope.
always, it doesn't always work out.
Yeah, but I'm concerned about a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
One is environmental impacts that this poor gentleman brought up. For one thing, anything over an acre in the state of Utah has to have a whole SWIP plan done. It has to be permitted through DEQ. All of that stuff has to be, none of it's done. And they're just dumping all their crap over on this poor guy. And if, the only reason I know it's not done is because that requires this big massive SWIP sign that has every entity involved, phone number, after hours numbers, all that kind of stuff. So I know it's not done. That should be done. So I think we're getting way ahead of our heels here a little bit. You know, if these guys are gonna be responsible, sorry, I didn't mean to turn around. If they're gonna be responsible and do everything that they're saying they're gonna be responsible, they should have started 6 months ago and not dumped all that nonsense on that lot, because you don't have any idea what you're impacting at all. So that's one thing I wanna bring up. The other has to do with crime, which has to do with the fact that, you know, my dad, and I'm pretty sure that this gentleman has a hotel in Heber City. And my dad retired as the chief of police in Heber City before that hotel was there. And I will tell you that there is no doubt that this is going to bring more crime, which is something I've dealt immensely with in the last week. So it's very personal to me. So it's something that needs to be considered. The other thing that I worry about, and not quite as much with a hotel as nice as what these pictures are, but if you can't keep that hotel full, then what happens? You go to weekly rentals, you go to monthly rentals. And I don't know if that's something is absolutely not allowed or it will not be allowed, but we all know what that does. You know what that does. That's a bad thing, something that needs to be considered. That's the rest of the stuff's way off topic, so I'll leave you alone.
I'm sure I'll hear about it.
Yeah, you will.
Hi, my name's Bob Wheaton. I live on Highway 35, but I'd like to comment representing both water companies, South Camas and Washington water companies. And Scott, thanks for the focus on the water discharge. And I would ask that part of the conditional use permit, one of those conditions be that this does absolutely go in front of the water companies, because it has not yet. And regarding water discharge, and also the quality of the water, because there's obviously a whole lot of asphalt there, which picks up petroleum products, and if that goes into our irrigation ditches, it's an issue. So thank you, and I'd ask that that review is absolutely put in front of the water companies. So, and also on the path, both water companies have met with the state and with the county on that path that goes along 32, and it does go right in front of that. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you for holding these. I'm Lisa Kajave, 2337 Spring Hollow. Very close, Dusty Hatch's old house. Two main things for me, starting with just going back to the general plan for Francis and what is stated to be the core values, kind of tying into the water and utilities and pretty much everything that are the general concerns, but stating really clearly that Francis will strategically plan and implement improvements to water and sewer utilities, ensuring necessary services are provided to the community before significant growth. So I would just ask that be taken to heart. Also, the economic development in relationship to the character. Francis will promote the development of a quaint Main Street with a unique character and charm reflective of the city's heritage. That's really more for the Four Corners than it is for this here. But all the comments about water and asphalt, petroleum, quality of water, just, it's a big concern with our growth. Light, noise, parking, trash, crime, you know, just, we all love our town. We all love the people, great neighbors, hoping to hone in on the core values of the general plan, which rural character, quiet small town atmosphere, smart, well-planned incremental growth, et cetera, et cetera. It's all laid out in our general plan. That is, really, I just hope that we can stay focused on that. And especially living very close, that's more for the Four Corners, but just a real concern over clean air, clean water, safe neighborhood, infrastructure that can support. We moved here in 2015. We're not long-term residents. We were previously in the Avenues. But,
You're okay. I'm not
am
rushing
I
you off.
okay?
Just,
Okay,
just-
thank you.
Just know you've hit the mark and try to wrap
And
up.
wrap it up. You know, we moved here. We love this town. We love the people. Clean air, clean water. Just hoping that we can stay focused on the values and vision that are in writing that are in a lot of our focus and hearts, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Thea Atkinson, 1332 South State Road 32. So I'm very close to where this will be happening. And I guess I have just kind of a question that maybe you guys might be able to answer, maybe not. I wonder if there's a study that we might be able to do to assess the additional strain that something like this might put on our local first responders. As somebody who's very closely related to one of our local firefighters, he's my husband, it's a concern of mine that while I know our local firefighters are very competent, this could put a very big strain. And I think something that Chief Thorell brought up in your marketing video was that currently we have 4 full-time firefighters on staff every day, and that's not enough to put out a fire. So we have to still rely on local volunteers and people like that to kind of help meet that need for our community already, right? So if we're already having to do those things, you know, what kind of additional strain would that put? So I guess my recommendation to the applicant would be to maybe consider a study of that nature, and kind of consider how that might impact things for local residents. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Audra Devora, 1102 Village Drive. We moved to the city because of the vision of the city. And it's really been sad to watch the policy and code of the city not be able to uphold the vision the city has. In this particular development, I would, if we are only going to consider the hotel parcel, I think the environmental concerns continue to be a concern for me across the street. How is the water going to drain off into all of our properties? I think that if we are talking just the hotel property, then mitigation does need to be on 3 sides. You're not building anything else on the other sides right now. There's nothing in plan, there's nothing approved. So there needs to be done as much as you possibly can do to uphold the vision of the city to the code that you have to abide by. That's what I ask of this council.
Thank you.
Holly Firth, 939 Village Drive. I echo a lot of the same things that my neighbors are saying. Stormwater, I'm Jeff's neighbor, same thing. I've had so much water in my backyard. Dealing with the water has been a huge issue. And I know of a very large facility across the street that's actually located in Camas that they are not allowed to dump their stormwater into the wetlands. So that's something that I think should be looked at. And then I just want to leave on this note, McKenna, you asked about this. City Code 18.45.150 buffers, fences, and walls, which states, facilities that require late-night customers and activities shall be located away from residential areas to reasonably prevent disruption of privacy. And there's more to that. And that's the code that I think that we brought up many, many times. How are we even looking at doing something like this until we figure out this code and what this code really means? Because at this point, this hotel is not a reasonable distance away from my home or my neighbors' homes to have a privacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Annie Zivkovich, 945 Wild Rose Drive. I'm going to read from my phone. Thank all of you for taking time out of your lives to manage our village. It's huge, and we're grateful. And all of you put all the time in. I'm not reading, I'm going to read it. Thank you. You're managing our lives and our commerce here. Your efforts are noble, revered, and deeply appreciated. And thank all of you for killing yourselves to be here tonight and sit through what might be sometimes to us a Ferris Bueller presentation of how many feet from how many lights from how many trees, how tall the trees are, to go the distance with no dinner and not being with our families. Thank you. I confess, as a 12-year resident, I have made it to less than a dozen meetings here, which makes me feel like I have not been respecting our village and your work. And you have done so very much. And it's so sad that the stinky, like, metaphorical blacktop, it seems like, oh, this hasn't been figured out, this hasn't been figured out. It's like there's this metaphorical blacktop that's been laid down by our representative city officials, who I expect are also residents. There's a sizable handful of humans who may benefit from this proposed project, this proposed business, and the eyesore that will negatively impact our community, like forever. Camas Valley and Francis collectively are one of the most beautiful, pure, precious rural valleys in Utah, and beyond that, maybe in our precious and threatened country. With all due respect, Francis is not Evanston, Wyoming, a raped and scraped highway town. We're not Duchesne. We're not a midnight stop for some people traveling through on Route 40. And good Lord, like, what is that thing that's on I-8, on 84 at Colville? What is that? What is that doing for that community? I'm from the Midwest, where development pretty much has crushed every view and the natural human connection with the earth. As our revered Mr. Wheaton, a deeply respected and brilliant human in the commerce of our county, recently stated, this is not a 100-year, this is a 100-year decision that you are making for us. For us. Have you been to California? Everyone has, right? Somehow, luckily, I ended up driving through Carmel by the Sea, like decades ago. Accidentally, didn't engage much. But that has stayed with me the last many weeks, that I've been witnessing what's coming, the signs, oh, a hotel here, a hotel, and a drive-through restaurant there. I don't know what went on there. I embarrassingly have not engaged with city government.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
But there are millionaires and billionaires who showed up there as residents to pay their taxes and support the community's needs, because it is indeed one of the most special spots there and here. I haven't been there in a long time, but it was clear that they fought off proposals like this to curate a home in a way to nurture our collective humanity. And we are that town. Francis. Francis is Carmel by the Sea. And that's been resonating in my bones for weeks. It's funny, actually, right? Francis, like, really, Carmel by the Sea? But it's true, and it can be. We have something here incredibly special to be proud of. And with one swipe of a pen, we can destroy that forever. So please, if you find a moment in your own personhood, in your own heart of hearts, coming days and weeks, please rise up and support the original and agreed upon codes that protect our way of life in this valley. I'll say one thing about us on this side of the room. Our community resident presentations tonight are not professional. We don't have weeks and weeks of presentation where we're getting paid to prepare this. So it looks so weak when a lot of us, myself included, with my shaky voice, are presenting this. It's so unpolished.
No, you did just fine.
It's just passion, and I'm not sticking with the codes. I'm not sticking with what you've asked us to talk about only tonight, which seems ridiculously restrictive, and with 2 minutes for people who care about this valley, when everyone else spoke for 120 minutes, seems unfair. Thank you for your soulful consideration, and thank you, David, for bringing this to light, because it's so easy to miss. Lord bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I'm Justin Jones, 1185 Village Drive. So I'd be 3 houses to the west of the hotel here. Katie, this may be a question for you. What is the rule on, so we're proposing 40 feet, is that correct, on the hotel?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is that from original grade, not fill grade? Because we've brought in probably 3 or 4 feet of fill dirt.
Yeah, so in the commercial zone, they are in the city center zone. they measure grade from finished grade. It has to be below the street level. That's the city definition of grade.
Okay. Probably a lot of echoing here too. I thought Dave did a really good job, a lot of the neighbors actually, but big concerns of wetlands. I mean, my understanding, we had a fill permit, or they had a fill permit for the southwest corner, I believe, is that correct? For this hotel?
The latest determination is that none of the site was wetlands.
Okay. Doesn't seem that way, but okay. Like I said, a lot of echoing here. I do commercial electrical down in, a lot of it in Salt Lake. You know, lighting, it's hard. I get that they've done a nice job with this structure of doing cutoff, fences, landscaping, but, you know, they don't see it from our perspective. I'm 3 houses down. When I walk out my door, my backyard, I will see that hotel. I will see trailers. I will see whatever it is out there. I understand the valley's growing and we can't stop that. But to me, put this hotel over by Weller's. Nobody gives a shit. Let it bother the cows, let it bother the horses. But by the raise of hand, who here knows of hotels in residential areas, even in Salt Lake? I mean, you know we need to back any houses. They're apartment buildings or condos nearby. They're not residential areas. It doesn't belong here. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Hello.
I'm Audrey Matthews at 554 Ash Court. No offense, but the Best Western is not, in my consideration, a high-end hotel. For one thing, nobody else dared to say that. My husband and I originally, well, the last 30 years are from Park City. We've lived here for 5 years, because we wanted the small town feel. And we feel like we've been let down. One thing no one's brought up is leaving the hotel, that tight aft Lambert. We are snowmobilers. You would be able to fit 2 snowmobile trailers behind each other to turn left, to go to the Uintas to go snowmobiling, for jamming up that intersection. That was one of my points. Where did all the hundreds of petitions go against this project? I want accountability for that. And why has no one brought that up? We've signed hundreds. He brought that up on a meeting last week. 400 people are against that project. Where did the petitions go? Why are you not taking that into consideration? We did a raise of hands last week. 6 people rose their hands. The entire other room, was against this growth crime. You cannot tell me there's no crime that comes with hotels. And I'm hoping this isn't on the public record, but we found out last night our 7-year-old granddaughter was sexually molested. You cannot tell me that won't happen. If I can save one of your grandchildren, your child, from being molested at a hotel or trafficked, it's worth me standing here and sharing that. You can't tell me that there's not going to be perverts on the top floor of that hotel with their windows open, and those kids are going to see that. You can't guarantee that. The lights on the top side of that hotel, the light noise will affect those neighbors. And that's all I have to say, and I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Dolores Atkinson Mansell, 1332 South State Road 32. I'm a lifelong resident of Francis. I was born and raised here, and it breaks my heart to see that we're trying to turn into a city when it should be a rural community. I know that we have to have places for people to live, but I don't know that we have to have 2 hotels in Francis, or even 1. I'm concerned about the traffic on Highway 32. You can't even get on the road now, and with more businesses and stuff, it's just gonna be harder. I'm concerned about water. In the summertime, we can't water our lawns, only certain times of the day and certain days of the week. And sometimes we run out of water, and I don't know that the sewer's big enough to take care of all of this. I just want to remain a rural, beautiful valley to live in. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Riley Atkinson. I also live at 1332 South State Road 32. That is my great aunt, and she has, like she said, been a lifelong resident. My family has been lifelong here in the Francis Valley, and I am fortunate enough to be able to have the privilege that a lot of other kids that I went to school with do not have, and that is to be able to afford to live here. She has sold me 2 acres on Lambert Lane, and so I'm going to back David's and ask that we get a perspective from our homes and our backyard as to what we're going to be looking at. And I also just ask you to take into consideration everything else that has been said here from all of the neighbors and family, from my wife and her, care and worry about me, and being able to give the service that is needed to the community in regards to emergency medical services and fire. If we are always going to the hotel and somebody else calls us in Oakley, we may not have the numbers. That's just something to think about. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Walls, and I'm coming back new to this area after being gone for 8 years in Heber. I was in Camas for quite some years while they were developing the High Star. And I at the time was frustrated that it took them so long to get everything okayed, because I knew back then we really needed the business. Now we're kind of getting overrun with everything, and business is plenty, in my opinion. But I just want to state that it's okay to say no to this stuff. We don't have to let these guys come and ramrod us with their city stuff.
It's not actually correct, but go ahead.
But Camas City actually did a lot of due diligence to get High Star where it is right now. It's a very pleasant event center and place where people can enjoy this area. And I really believe that it's something that maybe what Dora said, it'd be really nice if this area could remain the pleasant little place that it is noted for, and send them down to Camas, next to Wellers. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else who'd like to comment before I close public comment? Is there anybody else? Okay, with that, we'll close public comment. And Katie will await your guidance on the best way to piecemeal this out, or whatever you think is the easiest way for us to move through the items.
Okay, so go ahead and take whatever time you need for discussion. Hold on, let me. Here are for the commercial development, these are the items that need motions.
Got it.
And then we also need one for the conditional use permit.
Okay, my preference, if the planning commission doesn't disagree, I think it's easier to do them one at a time, especially the easier ones. Is there anybody who has a differing opinion?
For the commercial development piece, are we voting on each one individually, or are we discussing each one individually, and then cumulatively it results in a vote for commercial development?
So let's do those each individually. You can discuss it all right now, however you want that discussion happen, but when we get to the motions, let's go one by one, because trash and landscape are an approval from the planning commission or denial, or, you know,
Right.
the other ones are recommendations, as is the conditional use permit, a recommendation that will go to the city council for their decision.
Okay, so is everybody good with one at a time before I make my comment
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Sorry.
about
Where in
the
the staff
process?
report does it say, does it address the 24-hour issue?
So,
And I'm trying to find it in code, but the only thing that I've been able to find is that facilities that require late-night customers and activities should be located away from residential areas to reasonably prevent disruption of privacy.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
Mhm. Yeah,
That's it?
so, and then there are other ones, not the 24 hours, but there's other parts of our code. This is one of the reasons that we're starting this process of updating the development code. There are issues with the code not complying with our own new subdivision requirements in some cases, and state law in some cases. So, let me pull up this one. So I'm going up to the state law here, and it says that, sorry. Just looking through this. So this 1A, a municipality may adopt a land use ordinance that includes conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses that require compliance with objective standards set forth in an applicable ordinance. So that's the state law that we are allowed to adopt conditional uses. We have to have objective standards. So that is one standard that.
Then I think that we should
We need to
vote
look
on
at.
the code then. If we're gonna adopt the state law, then we need to set
So-
aside time
It
to
is.
talk about that.
Absolutely, we are
That's
gonna
when she
look at the
started.
code.
I guess let me, hold on one sec, sorry, Katie.
No, go ahead.
So if the current city code doesn't meet the legal requirements,
Of
then
state
it
law.
defaults to the state, which is why Katie has plugged the state law into our permit.
Right, so we have to,
So you absolutely can't just say we're just gonna put everything on hold because our code doesn't meet the law. That's why the law is written. If you don't meet this, you default to this.
But that's our code.
right,
Right.
when state law, this is what I'm reading here, when state law and city code conflict, state law prevails because of the correlating supremacy clause in the United States Constitution.
But I don't see that that changes that for us. I'm not seeing how that changes.
That's the problem. You're not seeing it. Because it is exactly what this says. If it is not meeting the legal requirements, which our code doesn't, which is why I would assume next month, we're gonna have a whole bunch of codes that don't meet the requirement, you have to default to the state law.
What I'm saying is, I don't see how the state law allows us to develop this because of our code and what it says. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on this, but that is the this is what we've prepared in the staff report, and that's our guidance on that matter. So.
So what about the petition? Like, what happened to that? How come we haven't heard anything about
I
that?
personally have not seen a petition. Suzanne, have you seen a petition and come in? No. We haven't had a petition submitted to us.
All we've had is someone say the podium, they've got a petition with a lot of names. That's it.
Okay.
So prior to the city council meeting, I think there's your hint.
So if a landowner wants to do what they want on their private property and they meet code, then we are obligated to approve that even if the public expresses disapproval.
You're not obligated, you may.
That is,
State you're obligated, says you may.
that is true, McKenna. So when we're evaluating conditional uses, we can't consider public clamor. That is a state law. We have to consider the evidence and how we're mitigating the detrimental effects. If those can be mitigated, then you have to approve the conditional use. That's the state law.
And that's the tricky part about sitting on the council and essentially volunteering your time.
Absolutely, that's the hard thing is when we have, so in city government, we have legislative decisions where we're making codes, we're setting policy, we're changing the zoning, we're annexations, those are all legislative decisions. This is an administrative decision, and that means that we have to follow the code. And we don't get to choose whether we like the policy or not. We are looking at the code and state law.
Why public comment then?
But unfortunately, public comment is closed, which is the tricky part.
But we do,
As
that,
far as public comment, was there online submissions? I believe I submitted a comment to be read online. I never heard it.
Comments were submitted in the packet for us to review. I
Yeah,
read it.
so-
I read both public comments submitted.
there were 4 comments submitted that are in your Dropbox and they'll be included in the record of the meeting.
We're doing that to try and expedite the process so that none of us are here till midnight reading email after email.
But you do get them, so you can
We get them,
consider.
and I read them. They're in my Dropbox. That's what I spend my Wednesday afternoons doing. Promise. So, that's the tricky part. I guess that's the part I'm saying is that sometimes even if our emotions or our feelings or all of those things that come into play with making the decisions as a part of the planning commission happen, if there's public dissent, if your very close neighbors absolutely hate the project, it doesn't really matter. You're obligated by law to look and to meet the objectives set forth. I think when we were in the discovery phase, I was very clear about a hard barrier between the residents. I was very clear about shrubs and trees to break up noise and sound and light. I was very clear this entire time that I think 4 stories is too tall for our valley. I don't want our valley to look like the skyscraper of the Grand Hyatt. That's not my goal. But I do think that the chicken and the egg argument always comes when it comes to public safety and public services and all that sort of stuff. You can't hire more people if you don't have more money. And so it's always gonna be an argument. Do you bring commercial to get the access to the services? Or do you hire the services in hopes that commercial comes? And I don't think anyone has a great answer to which way that works. But here's what I can tell you is that I ask that the economics of it be presented. I ask that the mitigating factors for noise and sound that I can reasonably do, meeting the legal requirements, be implemented. We've asked that extended landscaping outside of the scope of the project be considered. These are the factors, those are the inputs that this planning commission really needs. That's what we want. We want to hear solutions that you guys propose to the problem that meet the reasonable standard. Because outside of that, we can't do it. There's no action for us to do. And the last thing I'll say before we get into the weeds here is that this body right here only makes recommendations to the elected officials. We approve where the trash goes, and we approve where the trees go. And that's essentially it. That's what we approve. That's the scope of our authority. So I genuinely appreciate you're here. I understand the emotion connected to the issue. I understand how it must feel, or at least I think I do, how it must feel to have this development being built right next to your house. I can appreciate all of those things and those arguments, but our hands are tied. So I urge all of you to come to the city council meetings as well. Those are your elected officials. Those are the bodies who make the decisions. But you should know that if they meet the requirements in the law, that's the law. That's what it is. Doesn't matter whether the mayor or the city council dislike it. We follow the law. That's a good thing.
Sorry, Just to clarify one more time,
Go ahead.
is there a portion of this state law that would supersede that facilities requiring late-night customers and activities shall be located away from residential areas to reasonably prevent disruption of privacy? I know that it's objective, I know that, I mean, located away is very nebulous. But is there a portion of state law that would supersede that in any way?
I don't think I can answer, I don't know.
We're just following the direction of the city attorney.
Yeah, right? And he said that he felt that it was nebulous enough that you could approve it, right?
Right, yeah, he felt like state law would, go ahead, Scott.
One thing I'd like, I don't know how many people know about this subdivision. When the property was annexed into the city, the only reason the city annexed it is because we were getting additional commercial property. They did not want to annex the residential piece. They wanted the commercial property, but the residential came with it because you need residents with it. The commercial property development was supposed to happen first before the residents happened. Not necessarily be built, but they had to come up with a plan. They submitted a plan with gas stations. It didn't have a hotel, but it had a lot of the same things. Proposed this next to the residential houses. So the commercial was supposed to come before the residential. So this subdivision was planned as having commercial next to the residentials, and I think that's why some of the houses in the wetlands kind of made it so that the houses were further away from the commercial development. But this development, when it came to the city, is the city wanted the commercial development, not the residential. They got the residential with the commercial coming later.
Well, we have commercial all throughout our residential already, but we don't have 24-hour, 7-day a week,
Right.
365-day a year commercial next to
I
residential.
don't disagree with that, but we're following the direction from what the attorney said.
Maybe we should table it then.
Can you read what the attorney said again?
Which part?
Just whatever part addresses that 24-hour piece.
Okay. The city planning and legal staff are in the process of revising the city code to bring it into compliance with recent changes from the state legislature. When state law and city code conflict, state law prevails because of the correlating supremacy clause in the Utah State Constitution.
And there's no state law that supersedes that section of our code.
She
No,
has
that
already,
is the state code.
she's already responded.
There
that-
is no city code.
I thought public comment was closed, are they not public?
No,
He-
I'm
he
helping-
They're
is
the
actually
applicant.
not
Applicants
public.
are allowed
I'm
to
actually
speak.
helping interpret, just so you know, on the
We
legality.
can't chime in.
The supremacy clause that is being referenced, we're not reading the city code, we're reading this is the state code you're reading, not city.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
get
would
that.
just say, I don't want to
What's
get too far into the rabbit hole. I would
No,
go back
what's
to the city attorney's recommendation here.
What is the wording of this state code that would supersede this?
The objective standards. We have to have objective standards. So it says that we have to have objective standards set forth in the ordinance.
So that's the thing, we're missing an objective standard. Ours says near. I guess I'm confused at where you're hung up, so help me understand before I move us along. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, let me just sit with that for a
Okay.
Can I just ask a question? Has the developer signed a developer's agreement that what they're proposing is what's going to get developed?
I think that's outside of the scope of what's on our agenda.
No, we're not looking at a development agreement at this point. It might be
So
something,
then
it
what
might
you're
be a
saying is
possibility.
they could come in and put in a pawn shop or a strip club eventually because it's objectionable standards.
So, no, that's not true. We don't have allowed in our city code that you can do a pawn shop or a strip club
But
in that
it's an
area.
objectable standard.
Okay, so,
All right, hold on. Let's
So-
rein it in.
okay, so Kim, when we look at what uses are allowed in our commercial zone, we have a long table in our commercial zone that lists those. Pawn club, pawn shop, strip club are not allowed. They're not even a conditional use. So that would not be allowed here. I get calls quite a bit from people that are wondering, hey, I'm looking at some property here. Recently, I got one. Can I do a heavy equipment rental in the commercial zone? I look at that table. No, you can't. It's not listed as a use in that zone.
And the 24 hours, 7-day a week is on that list?
Hotels are conditional use on that list.
Okay. Are there, God forbid, any more questions surrounding the legal aspect of it, or can we start moving through some items?
I'm ready.
What
Okay.
are all the conditions? Like,
Well,
do you want
hold
me to
on,
pull
let's
that up?
just, we gotta split this up, because otherwise we're gonna end up with the same problem we had last time, and we have notes that are 30 pages long, and frankly, hard to get through for Suzanne, and even harder for me to get through to actually read. So we're not gonna do that this time.
Thank you.
We are gonna do this one at a time. Comment needs to stay on track with this, please. Trash storage. I recall where the trash storage was. I am comfortable with where the trash storage is located. I don't have any additional questions for anyone. Who else is in that same boat?
I'm in the same boat.
Okay, you're in the same boat. Kim, that leaves you.
I don't have any questions about where the trash is.
Okay, I will entertain a motion regarding trash.
I will submit a motion that we accept the trash storage element of the commercial development plan as indicated here.
I'll second that, and we'll vote.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
I,
Okay. All right. Parking. I didn't.
Justin.
We'll try and keep it simple. Parking. I believe that this meets the criteria, and I don't see anything in our code that would state otherwise that this is not gonna meet the criteria.
I'll add to that I think that it actually goes above the requirements of the agreement, and I think that, for me at least, I appreciate all the different elements that have been brought to this to kind of account for future growth, so I think that it meets the standard.
Kim, do you have any comment about parking? You good? Kenna? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the parking element of the commercial development plan.
Positive recommendation.
Positive recommendation. Yes, positively recommend approval of the parking plan as indicated in this document.
I'll second.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
I,
Site plan. Scott, just to verify, we are certain we've met all the requirements we need to for the drainage and all of that sort of stuff. There were several comments that I didn't
Can you
recall
go through your
reading.
recommendations, and then they can just do, if they wanted to, they could do a motion to include all those recommendations, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the recommendations is, the biggest thing, they're gonna connect to the water and sewer, they gotta turn in enough water shares, install the fire hydrants directed by the South Summit Fire District. The biggest thing is the roads. Do we require curb and gutter and sidewalk along the proposed private streets? Then what kind of improvements do we require on 32 and Lambert as part of this development? That's another one we need to talk about.
Okay.
Then the storm drain, you know,
what
they,
recommendations do you have regarding curb and gutter and the storm drain? And is this where we should also add the condition to have them go before the water district, the two water companies as well?
as far as the water companies go, the ditch that they dump into is the Beaver Shingle Creek Irrigation Company, so they need to correlate with them. And,
Both?
right?
Two companies or one company?
There's Washington Water that flows through this one. But,
The ditch that we're dumping into.
one thing that Scott pointed out, the water company is doing some of my work.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And they've already reviewed, we have the letter from them. I was just, if you wanted more, we can provide that, but they've already reviewed it. We've got to hear from the Beaver and Shingle Creek Irrigation Company.
Aren't you part of the water companies?
Not Beaver Shingle.
Not
Not Beaver Shingle.
Okay, perfect. It's already been addressed. That was my only question. Because that came up in a previous meeting about making sure we're being responsible with that.
Since we're talking about water, can I just ask you a quick question, Scott? Our well, is it online or are we using generators to keep it going right now?
Right now, we're not using it because in the wintertime, we don't need it. But the power, we worked with Rocky Mountain Power, we're getting that finalized, so it'll be up there and ready to go this spring.
Like March or?
Probably
April?
March, April.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Scott, finish your recommendations, please.
So yeah, we need to get UDOT approval for the access. We haven't got that yet.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is the curb and gutter. The traffic report talked about turning lanes off of 32. My recommendation is that we widen, as part of the Hart Crossing subdivision, they had to widen Lambert Lane at that intersection for so many feet. My recommendation is it's widened the entire width of this parcel that goes and ties in where Village of Lambert Lane residential starts, that they widen that, so that we can get the turning lane that we had Hart Crossing put in, so that it's extended further.
What about a roundabout on that corner where Lambert and the Main Street come together?
That's a whole nother subject with UDOT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because that's a highway. Remember we just had this one, yeah.
That's
The approval.
That's UDOT. There's a study being done right now as far as widening that road.
When do we expect to get it back?
They've got a draft form that they just send out to the stakeholders. The stakeholders are meeting next Tuesday. And then after that, it'll go to public comment.
It's gonna be a little bit before that gets finished up, but as far as a roundabout, no, UDOT does not have one proposed right there.
And I wouldn't anticipate that they would want one.
They won't roundabout a highway. I would be shocked.
They did over by the Home Depot.
There's no.
On-ramp is not the highway.
That main road that goes up and down, that's not a highway?
UDOT
That's
has
UDOT road.
the on and off ramps, but once it exits the off ramp, that's the county's
Oh,
roundabout.
the county put that in?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, read us your recommendations again.
So we work with UDOT and see what they want to require as part of their approval. We widen Lambert Lane, the entire width of this parcel to begin with, and curb and gutter sidewalk on the private streets.
And then turn lanes is the only other note I have that we need to discuss, or
The turn lanes is more gonna be UDOT
UDOT's
requirement,
issue.
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna scratch that.
Scott,
just say
and then we need
follow-
to-
Just to be clear on the curb and gutter piece, it's curb and gutter is included as the roads are constructed. I think there's
Correct.
more roads on the overall plan than what they intend to put in now. So it's whatever they do just includes curb and gutter.
Whatever's shown on this site plan that they build, like I mentioned, they talked about 2 entrances, they're only planning on building 1 right now.
Yes,
So the roads that they plan to build have curb gutter and sidewalk on them.
okay.
Got it.
And then just to address, I've got some red line comments on their site plan that we need to address, and we need to get irrigation company approvals.
Which it sounds like you are.
Well, there's the Beaver Shingle Creek, but we've also got the South Camas and Washington.
I'll leave it to you.
They're
So-
kind of together, but it's more Washington that we need, but
Got it. So
we need to work with them.
So you need, I stopped, so accept, you just said 2 things.
2 things.
So we need water approval.
Yeah, we need irrigation company approval, more than just Beaver Shingle Creek.
And then,
We need UDOT approval.
yep. Are all these listed, can we say with?
Just-
Oh, red line comments.
Red
There
line
it goes.
comments, and if you just say, address comments on my staff report, that'll cover it.
So accept red line comments and address comments on Scott's staff report, that would cover us.
Yep.
And then I've got another question to add to that for the site plan, because this is for the commercial development. The fence. Is this part of it? Because I do still think that the fence needs to cover the entire north and west of the entire project.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not a code requirement for this, for commercial development.
got it.
But it is something that.
But this is a conditional use permit, right?
And we will get to
can-
the conditional uses.
So this is not the conditional use?
No,
this
this
is
is
the
site
site
plan.
plan.
Okay, sounds good.
Got my heart rate up.
I'll wait.
Okay, does anybody have any questions regarding Scott's staff report or recommendations? No?
How do
Andy
we,
asked her.
well, I'll just
Well, I mean,
make a comment just by saying that I concur with the recommendations, particularly to include the curb and gutter requirement for the roads that are
I rarely,
included, so.
I rarely do this, but I think you haven't taken anything down yet, have you? Okay, I will make a motion for a positive recommendation to city council with the caveat that we address all the issues on Scott's staff report and recommendations for approval. Did I get them all? That work? Katie, will that work?
Sounds good.
That was complex, there were a lot there. So I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Okay, and we'll vote.
Aye.
No?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that clean enough, Suzanne? Okay, site plan is moving forward with a positive recommendation. Katie, just a clarifying comment, since I've muddied the waters all over with this, the landscape plan must stick with the proposed, so you're stating that it would be unreasonable to expect that all of that be built out.
So that's my opinion,
Okay.
because the application is for this site. And so I think we need to stick to that. That's my opinion. The
Okay.
landscape, I will just remind you, because this is where it gets a little bit muddier. There's the landscape plan, which we have very
Right.
clear guidance on what is required by the city. And I do feel like it meets all of those requirements. It complies. Then there's also the conditional use, which is separate, where we get more into the buffers and that. So just try to separate that out a little bit and think
That's-
about the difference
Okay.
between,
So let's not talk about the
Buffers.
mitigating factors.
right,
Let's talk about the
What's on.
landscape plan and design for the proposed section.
Yep.
Okay, Ms. McKenna, you get to start us off because you are my designated tree lady.
I love that.
I know you do.
So the overall utility and drainage plan lists a vegetated bioswale, but then in the landscaping plan, that does not reflect it in the landscaping plan. So, am I missing it? It should be like right here, right?
It's this right here, this stuff.
Bio meadow grass.
So then this indicated vegetated bioswale right here is this
That's-
whole,
Yeah, that's this, that's kind of showing that right there.
okay, gotcha. Sounds good.
And Katie,
But then it's not vegetated. It's got just trees along that outer perimeter. Is that what they're qualifying as vegetated?
so that's the trees and,
Just on that back,
oh, on the plan, there's no
That's just
bushes?
showing the landscaping, but it will be
more vegetated?
grassy type stuff for the bioswale.
It looks like it's just gonna be gravel there on the landscaping plan.
let me pull that up.
I mean, cause I think of a bioswale and a retention pond are different, right? A bioswale has plants in it, it helps,
Yeah, this could be-
especially if this water is going directly into the wetlands, which I have some serious concerns with, then I think that there should be,
That should show bioswale, yes.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Okay, hold on, we gotta make a note before we get too far. Are you gonna propose this one, or are you gonna take notes? Do you want a piece of paper? Okay, now you're gonna have to show the big dumb guy what you mean, where we.
It just needs to have a vegetated bioswale as proposed.
On the west property.
On the west
Yeah,
property line.
On that west,
That matches the site plan.
yeah.
And can you make that clear if you're talking the entire gravel line back? Is that where you're
So, let's see.
Just so we have the note.
Yeah, absolutely. So on your site plan, you've got, so there's a couple of conflicting details, right? So you've got the stormwater retention basin per civil, but then on your utility and drainage plan, you've got labeled as a vegetated bioswale, and there's not really an end for that. So what I would propose is anywhere that you're planning on making what is referenced on your site plan as the stormwater retention basin, that's all vegetated bioswale.
Great, that's the detail we needed, perfect.
Outstanding. Tell him I'm getting tired. What else is wrong with it?
No, nothing. If they fulfilled city code, then it's just that.
The
Yeah, it's in the
one
check
clarifying
boxes.
question I had, you had mentioned the mix between evergreen and deciduous, but
They've got it outlined in their key.
we're good with that because of the skew with evergreen on the west property line?
Well, yeah, so that's a recommendation.
Not okay, I'm good with it then.
Actually,
Whoops.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, and this might be getting in more to the mitigating than but it does say that it's serviceberry. And then it's got all except for 2 trees as mungo pine.
Yeah, there are some pines on the corner.
There's
but-
2 pines on the corner, but the rest is all just serviceberry, which does have a height limit and will be barren in the winter. So for mitigating purposes, I do think that line should be evergreen instead of serviceberries, and that ideally there would be more than just one line, but I think that's more mitigating than.
I mean, I like the one line as a mitigating, like growing together, but yes, I think, what's the cleanest way to do that? Cause I do think it should be evergreen, not.
Are you guys?
We're fine with that. We're
It's
fine
supposed to
with
be
that.
evergreen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna mark west in our recommendation, west, what are we gonna call that? West berm tree plan.
West landscaping, so I don't know. I will say though,
Be
I
changed
really
to
like
evergreen.
the landscaping plan, like it is great.
Well, I mean, I know it's unpopular, but you guys listened to all the things that we talked
did.
about in that discovery session, and you came back overly prepared with pictures and diagrams, and, you know, I know it's not a popular project, but, I mean, for us, like, this really did make it easy, so thank you.
It's a world of difference from January's meeting.
I knew what you were thinking. All right, so far we've got 2 things on the landscape plan that would need to be conditions for approval. Is there anything else from the committee that we've seen that we wanna, that aren't connected to mitigating factors? No? Okay. Do you want me to do it? All right.
Just do it.
I motion we approve the landscape plan with the following condition changes, what's the easiest way to say that? With the following
Changes.
changes being made, that the vegetative bioswale on the west property line be included, and that the west berm tree plan be changed from, what were those?
Serviceberry.
Serviceberry to, an evergreen, in the interest of, yeah, creating.
Second.
With the note,
Here, we'll just so nobody wants to request me, this is my note about the 2 things, cause
I just want to add that it should stay the same amount of trees, and so you may have to change the spacings with the evergreens, cause they'll grow wider. So you can scatter.
okay,
Second.
so it's seconded. But let's give Suzanne just a second to write out vegetative bioswale.
It's important. With long taproot plants.
Can you second this one?
Do you know what, like, diversity on this board is a good thing.
Are
Not
you
sure,
sure?
but-
When you're
I'm
going
positive.
over
Are we
at
ready
9
for
or
voting?
10?
Is Suzanne ready for a vote?
I believe she is. Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Whew. Landscape plan. Man, we're just rocking and rolling.
Oh, just wait till we get to the commercial.
I can't wait. I told my family, don't wait up. I need to go to the next one, I've lost track.
Yep, sorry about that.
It's
Let me
my
go
bad.
back to that. We're on architecture.
We are on architecture. So with that, let's open it up to public comment. Or not public comment. I'm sorry. No, we're not opening it up to public comment.
Congrats for staying.
Sit
You can
down.
now read your email.
Let's open it up to planning comment. And Scott, as always, please go first.
In considering the architectural design, personally, I think it's a great design. I think it looks very nice. And I heard from the staff report that they believe, staff believes it's in compliance with the standards. I believe that it does effectively design aesthetically pleasing building that complies with the design guidelines.
Yeah, that's more, looking at the code, do you feel like it complies with that?
I do.
Okay.
It's so much better than the one from last month. Like, it's
You guys got it so easy because they
It's so
came in.
much better, like, it's so much better. It doesn't look like a homeless shelter or something.
Awesome.
I also can't stand the red sign. It's so,
Good luck with corporate.
but
Tell
thank
them the
you.
only hard thing that you got hung up with was the sign.
They won't care.
They
Yeah,
should care.
and that red BW on the top of it is like a
So
target, in
bad.
my opinion. But that's all I have.
What if
That's all
that was
you
the
have?
only thing that stopped it from getting approved? I'm just saying,
Hey,
they'd have to change
Let's
something.
stay focused. I got a bedtime.
Okay.
And my patience wanes.
Don't you have something to say?
I believe that this complies with the code as written and meets the criteria that we would expect for mountain aesthetic.
Okay. I will say, it is so obvious that you guys took so much of the public comment from last time and really tried to incorporate it. And that's great. And I really appreciate that. The landscaping is beautiful. The architecture is beautiful. I will say this for the future of the entire commercial development. Just because you do have some renderings of what could be there, I think what really makes this building different and on your design style inspiration, what makes it different is that it's not commercial buildings with flat roofs. And that, I think, is like an extremely distinguishing feature. And in fact, I'm gonna recommend that we add that to our code in our commercial developments, that they don't have flat roofs, because I see the entire site plan, and it does make me feel like we're in Harriman or Vineyard or one of those fast-growing cities. And so the architecture of this building is great. I would love to see for the rest of the development more taken from the design style inspiration, where it is homier. It doesn't feel like a typical commercial development that you would see in a fast growth city, right? Or in like one of those commercial developments that springs up. So, yeah, I like the architecture for the hotel.
Awesome. I'll entertain a motion.
I submit a motion that we accept that we
Positive.
provide a
Positive.
positive recommendation for the architectural design elements of this commercial development.
I'll second.
Aye.
No,
Aye.
Hi.
Awesome.
And can we get that added to like the code, that commercial buildings have to have not flat roofs?
Let's put that on the table.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Outdoor lighting plan.
It's great.
Okay, well, that was easy. Do you have any comments for the outdoor lighting plan?
It's great.
Do you have anything for the outdoor lighting plan? I believe that the outdoor lighting plan complies with our city code. I'll entertain a motion.
Let's see.
Make
I
positive.
make a motion that we positively recommend the outdoor lighting plan. Period.
I will second.
Aye.
no.
Aye.
It complies with city code and it's their private property.
Okay, and now we're on to the conditional use permit.
Outstanding.
So these are the conditions that I recommend to mitigate the negative factors. I've been through them. Do you have any questions on those?
How many no parking signs are you gonna put on Lambert Lane?
To be determined. And if you have a number that you feel is appropriate, we could discuss that. But
Let's
I
not
don't,
do
that
it.
seems, Scott, you probably should cover that one.
We have, I think, standards that we have that they're spaced like every so often. I can't
Like
think
every
of it.
100 yards or
Yeah,
You
something.
do have a
somewhere.
standard?
There's
Okay.
a standard that they'll need to follow. We're not gonna put them every 5 feet, but.
Arrows, right? One on each end, arrows.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that the fence should not just be on the western boundary, I think it should also be on the northern boundary. I think we've already agreed to replace the serviceberry tree buffer with an evergreen tree buffer. Same amount of trees.
Same coverage, because they might be bigger.
Oh, they're gonna be bigger, no, I don't want the same,
Okay.
same coverage, I
You're
want
just
the
saying you
same
want, like,
amount of trees and I
staggered.
want them, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the goal with those is to create a visual blocking barrier. So as long as we achieve that, that's my goal, right? Like, so.
Yeah, like an all year.
Yeah, an
Oh, yeah.
an evergreen one that blocks. So alternated, staggered, I'm not the tree expert, like, let's just say it needs to meet that requirement.
Same amount of trees.
Okay, same amount of trees. What other questions?
And yeah, I think that the trees need to be on the northern boundary as well still. I, know that there's some concern about them not being kept alive, but I think based on, let's see. How wide is that landscaping edge? Cause it's fairly large and you put the trees on the edge. I don't think it's fair for the current residents that exist to the north, just because the site isn't built up, the entire commercial site isn't built up there.
I guess here's where we'll probably argue tonight, because I think that the windows that are exposed to the north and south end are so minimal, and you guys can correct me, but they're not rooms.
But it's not just about windows and people staring into their yards, it's also about the people who live there looking out and seeing this giant hotel where once it was ag. And so having the trees there to mitigate that view for them, that's what we're trying to do with the conditional use permit. We're not just mitigating the effects they're having on the residents, we're mitigating the effects that these residents are now seeing from their view being replaced.
Yeah, I guess my question is, whose onus is that? Because if my neighbor builds a shed and I don't like it, then that's on me to go plant trees along there. And I think I don't think it meets the criteria as a mitigating factor. There's no rooms that are occupied as residents, and there's several hundred yards.
But it's a conditional use, your neighbor building a shed in their yard
Oh,
isn't
yeah.
a conditional use, isn't a conditional use because it's small enough and it affects just a couple. This hotel, it is a conditional use permit, it is brought to us so that we can attach conditions to mitigate the detrimental effects. This is one of the detrimental effects, their view of ag and pasture land is being replaced, at least let it be replaced by nature instead of a building.
I guess my point is I'd be more inclined to do that for the site plan that's adjacent as a requirement of conditional use, but I just don't, I don't think it meets, I'm just being candid, I don't think it meets the criteria for me.
Yeah, and that's fine, we can make either, I'll be candid as well. I'm not sold on, like, I think that these conditions are good to get in place, but I'm still not sold that, cause the state code says that a municipality may adopt a land use ordinance that includes conditional uses and provisions with objective standards. So that's a may, that's not a shall, and we don't have those objective standards currently where it says that, yeah, this all-night operating business shouldn't be or shall not be within 100 yards, 50 yards.
Yeah.
And so I'm still not sold on that. So we can, I just don't wanna beleaguer this issue where I'm still not sold on a bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's gonna pass the reasonable standard, I just don't, like, these are my, I don't wanna play devil's advocate,
Yeah.
cause I don't think that's, I just don't think, like,
Yeah.
where are we gonna get the traction to say that that meets the reasonable standard? Because I just don't think with distance, space, not being rooms, I mean, one's gonna be a stairwell, the other one's gonna be a workout facility, he's already got an 8-foot fence, like, it still has to pass muster, like, it still has to be reasonable.
But you're not listening to what she's saying. She's talking about the view from the Village Drive people. It's not about what's at the hotel and what they're seeing. It's about what the people from Village Drive are seeing.
Is that Village Drive that wraps around to the two
Yes.
teakwood houses on the north?
That's where it
Okay, alright.
So yeah, I think it's in code as a conditional use to have conditions to mitigate it. I'm just trying to mitigate it for all the residents, even if it's not a directly, what is the word? Not adjacent, it's
Alright, let's do it, let's, I mean, it's, at this
Contiguous.
point, it's a recommendation that has to
Yeah.
be reviewed by the city council, like, I just.
Yeah.
I
I
think,
just need to document it for us, so is the council claiming that the site is a mitigating factor in the code? Because that's what we have to have that on the record. Is that what you're mitigating is site? Is that the vote?
No,
I'm
we're looking at-
mitigating the conditional
lost me.
use
No.
permit for the hotel. That's what we're mitigating.
But you're not, no, you have to mitigate factors. Which factor are you mitigating? is
Oh,
what
yeah.
I'm asking.
I'm
You're mitigating site factor,
yeah, I'm mitigating the fact that there's gonna be a hotel where there once was ag.
right.
Yeah.
But which factor? Is it noise? Which factor is it, just so we have it on the record?
Oh, so do I need to state a factor that was specifically identified by staff?
Yeah,
So if staff forgot to list something as a mitigating factor that needs to be mitigated, then I can't address it?
It
It's
has
for
to-
the code.
So
Yeah.
it has to relate to one of these standards, and, you know, we might have missed something, so if you can relate it to one of those standards, we
Site
can think about
and
it.
noise.
Yeah. Size and location of the site, let's do that one. So number 1,
Okay, great.
yeah.
alright,
So you said site?
Size
not
and
site.
location.
Size.
size,
Okay.
So number 1.
With respect to number 9, following the same
Right.
logic, I believe that previously there was discussion about how this tree line would help to mitigate noise. So if it is logical to believe that the tree line that's directly on, like to the west only, the way it's set up today, mitigates noise in that direction, then if it runs the west and the north, it would mitigate noise all the way around
Yeah.
on those two sides.
And so I guess if we're looking at this list, it doesn't really matter about people looking out of the hotel, out of windows. So it doesn't matter if there's not windows on that north side, if we're addressing these factors.
I think isn't there a privacy, I'm sure there's a privacy one on there, or is there not?
Did you get what you
Or is
needed?
that size and location?
So 1,
Yeah, when
9,
we do the vote, we'll just ask for the clarification on the size and the location, so.
no. The size would be 3-story hotel, so.
alright, let's stay respectful, cause at the end of this, like, I gotta go talk to some of these people and they're my neighbors. And I think like we can all disagree and that's healthy. And I think that we have to have a legal argument presented, right? Like, that's the case with all the things we do, with why we make recommendations. So,
So we make a recommendation, it goes to city council, and then they approve or disapprove, correct?
yes. So this would be a positive, so in theory, not yet, Suzanne. So in theory, this would be a positive recommendation with staff's,
The evergreen,
do you need me to read them out? Staff's recommendations with the changes to the evergreen berm, and there was one more, right?
the evergreen tree buffer or the berm?
Evergreen tree buffer.
And I guess the western boundaries, that they be extended to northern boundaries on 1 and 2 for reasons 1 and 9 on the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is, we gotta talk this through here, so.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
do you still,
No, I mean, I still think it's I personally think it's a stretch, but I really don't think that there's gonna be, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, trees are expensive, but I mean, you're talking about irrigation pipe and some trees, like, I don't think that's gonna stop you guys. So, I think, you know, you can make whatever recommendations you want, like, if you guys think that it meets the legal criteria and that's the way you wanna go with it, I just don't, I don't think you're gonna get there on the north side, but.
Okay, so is this what we're looking at, the addition of evergreen tree buffer on north boundary?
Yep.
And is that the entire northern boundary or a portion of it?
Entire.
Okay.
And that's not the northern boundary of the 2.1 acres, that's northern boundary of the farther north portion, correct?
Can you
Yeah.
clarify that?
Yep.
If there's a way to directly reference your presentation, right? I think that following the language of evergreen versus serviceberry, so that's the revised version. And if it appeared, I think that what we're talking about here is what we see on the second to last page of this document shows landscaping, tree line, on the west and north side. And I believe that is what we are discussing. It looks like this.
Yeah. It's even like the last page of your,
Well, the very last page cuts off part
Half
of
of it,
the
yeah.
edge. So the second to last shows,
What do you
Yeah.
call that plan? What do you, I don't have that one. So what do you wanna call that?
not named.
The large format renderings, do you want to just call it that?
You just wanna say the north boundary of Village East subdivision?
Yeah, why don't we just say the west and north boundaries?
Would that extend all the way to the highway?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I just don't want it to be interpreted that it's this parcel that we're talking about on the north boundary.
No,
Because it's easy to see, there's no trees there, so it's the north boundary of the subdivision.
that's the most lawyer thing ever, and thank you.
Man, and I'm,
yeah, that's why I'm just trying to cut to it and say, this
Yeah,
picture,
you're
it's
right.
this.
it's
Yeah.
there.
So we call this the large format rendering, and then that will help us reference it.
Okay,
Okay.
so I typed it there. Hopefully that helps everyone, just for discussion purposes. if that
Yeah,
looks
I mean,
okay.
I think then we can just reference that we.
And the
We
fence.
would then,
Okay.
So on
So
number
you
one.
changed number 1 to western and northern boundary
Uh-huh.
for
Okay.
fencing, right?
Yep. So 1 and 2 would just be extended to north.
I guess that was an assumption on my part, you're right.
Okay.
Okay. Up to you, you wanna take it on or you want me to, Scott?
Are we commenting or are we
Well, I
ready
think,
to?
I mean, I guess that's a good
Are we-
point. I am done with my comments, I've made my opinion.
Yeah, and I believe that down the rest of the way, I don't have any further comment. I think the rest of it is on point.
Yeah.
personally.
What do you got?
Yep. So I think we're gonna be a tie vote on this one. So we can move on a positive or a negative recommendation. If it's up to me, I'm gonna make a negative recommendation just because I don't think that the language in the state code, a municipality may adopt a land use ordinance that includes conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses that require compliance with objective standards set forth in applicable code. And so it's a may, it's objective standards, and I can see how the attorney is interpreting it, but I don't think that that language is strong enough as it currently stands to supersede the current code that facilities that require late-night customers and activities shall be located away from residential areas to reasonably prevent disruption of privacy, because there will be a disruption of privacy, even with the mitigating factors here. There will be late-night customers, and so I just don't think that the way our current code states that the state code is strong enough to supersede that. So if it's up to me, I'm gonna make a negative recommendation.
Can we discuss that really quick?
Yeah.
Because the way that I'm interpreting it, where it says municipalities may adopt ordinances for conditional uses, that, we have done that. So that may is out the window because we've chosen to adopt conditional uses. And when we do that, we have to have objective standards. So that's how I read it, that,
Is it accurate to say that that particular element is also not even in the purview of what we're discussing right now? That we have before us an application
Ooh,
for these line items,
I
right?
think it's in the purview.
it's not directly referenced, right? Instead, what we have is an application, and we have a staff report that says that this application is meeting these standards.
I
Right.
just said objectively, this is what my recommendation will be. So if you want to make a different recommendation, you're more than welcome to.
Of course, I'm just trying to understand how they
Well,
connect
yeah, so
for
this
you.
this is the problem though, because we're gonna have two of us, we have to come to an agreement.
We don't have to. We can
We
forward a
table
tie
it
vote to
and
the
wait
plan.
till next month.
We can send a tie vote to the plan, to the
We can
city
send a
council.
tie vote to the city council, and it's not,
Outstanding, let's do it.
yeah. and
I
can
thought
just
we
say
had to
we're
have
meeting-
3
No.
or
No.
1.
We're
No,
not,
I thought we
you're
had
not
more-
the
we're
governing
not the
body.
deciding figure.
I must be getting my landscape and conditional use all mixed up.
Well, if it was the landscape plan, then yeah, we would have to have a decision one way or the other. We couldn't tie on that. But where this is going to the council, and in the past, we have done this, where we had a tie vote, and we send that recommendation to the council as a tie, and that's fine.
I move to negatively,
Well, hold on.
we're ready to vote. Let's go home.
Your chair hasn't asked for a motion.
Yeah.
I thought you did. I thought you were ready.
No, now he wants to wait. Kim.
So
Let him
here's the
wait.
thing, last time, so you're about to do the same mistake that I made last time that made everything really hard. So it's gonna go as a neutral recommendation, so I don't wanna make a negative and a positive one, right? Like,
I mean,
We can do both.
We can just move that it's forwarded to city council with these recommendations, and the planning commission
and
will
then
split.
vote.
yeah, just say,
Okay,
yeah,
done.
that, Suzanne, are you okay with that?
With what now?
We're just, all
See,
we're,
this is,
all we're doing is moving it
She's
to
like,
city
I-
council. No negative, no positive
Neutral.
recommendation, we're just moving it to city council.
Okay, that's all you're saying, yes.
With a neutral recommendation?
okay, so somebody's gonna say it, so do you wanna make a neutral recommendation, or do you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Okay, no, I don't wanna steal it if you were gonna do it.
No,
just
I
don't-
was gonna say no.
Oh, so, see, that's what I was doing last week, and then I got like,
what the people want.
I got
Always gonna
Suzanne
vote what the
slapping my
people want.
hand.
Thank you so
Like, don't make me write things 47 times, just figure it out before you vote. I
Don't Go
vote,
back after you've already made your vote.
exactly.
And I'm sorry to stick this in, but
Okay,
just-
let's stop.
Just to be accurate,
All
okay,
right.
we're already talking about this, I don't think there'll be an objection, but to be accurate here, I believe the term being used is subdivision, so western and northern subdivision boundary for number 1, and in number 2, line 2, evergreen tree buffer on north subdivision boundary, or actually, you don't need to do it, it already says it in the 3rd line of number 2. But in that top one, it didn't say it, so
Do I need to
you just
put,
need to be specific that we're not talking about just the site plan for the one site, but it's the subdivision.
okay.
Again, the most lawyer thing ever, and I greatly appreciate it.
Okay,
Okay, very good. Moving on.
okay,
There's some good jokes here, but we're just gonna keep it focused.
we're so close.
I make a motion for a neutral
Make it faster.
recommendation that we
Forward.
forward to city council with the recommendations as written by staff.
Okay, and then the neutral, you're all just agreeing that some of you are pro, I will cover that in my staff report that it was tied, and
You will cover that in your staff
yes,
report?
and I will state the reasons for why it was.
I also just want to say that this is not a reflection on the hotel. Like, it's actually just our code. Thank you for like coming and listening and like, and to the residents that did come and show up and stayed, like, thank you for caring. Thank you for pointing out the code, because like, that's where we can operate, is within the code, right? And so if there's things that we need to change with the code, that's what we do. That's where we can move.
And I really hope you come next month, because you really need to be in front of the city council. They need to hear what you have to say. I will always vote what the residents want in our town. So I know I look like the no person, but I'm just doing it for you.
And I'm just following the law.
Yeah, I'm with McKenna, I'm following my interpretation of the law, and that's the direction we have to take.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I believe it sounded like we
So you
need
need a
more
vote?
than what
You
we
made a
have.
motion.
I need a
There-
second.
There was no second, and then there's discussion again.
I'll
which
second.
should go after the motion.
You're shaking, you're so mad at me.
Yeah, I'll second, and then what do we do?
It's been seconded by Scott, and you need a vote that just is an all aye for a neutral recommendation,
That
or a
works for me, I mean, that's acknowledging that this
Aye.
is 2-2.
Aye.
aye.
Yeah.
It's weird, I know it's weird, right?
Like,
Why,
no,
yeah.
but it doesn't matter.
They'll know what happened.
Oh, they'll
They'll
know.
know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, that is the end of the
Yeah.
conditional use permit
That is,
portion of the show.
yeah,
For those of you who would like to stay for the remainder of the agenda, we are electing a chair and a vice chair and approving some minutes and taking a staff update. You are all welcome to stay. I will give you a brief intermission if you'd like to exit.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Really.
Mr. Attorney, sir, I'm sorry I got spicy with you for a second.
It's okay.
He's an attorney.
I have such thick skin. you can't believe
Okay, great.
it. I still love every one of you.
I still apologize.
I mean, I'm not gonna hug you, but. No hugs.
It really does look good.
Thanks, guys.
okay.
More roofs, Wes. More roofs.
Oh, we got it, we got it.
Whoever reads my logo, I love it.
Great.
Great
And
night.
roofs. We want roofs.
Thanks.
I say we keep Justin as
I second
chair,
that.
and let's keep
What?
Rich
I like
as
Rich.
voice,
I
or
second that.
vice.
Okay.
Hold on, we need Scott.
Okay, could you just say that in the
Gosh dang,
microphone?
Scott. Where'd he go?
Still that one next to
Okay,
you.
but if we make, if we all vote, it's gonna pass.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
does he have
Suzanne
to
would
be
like
here?
to add something.
Okay, so you make your chair annually, right? Or is it a two-year
Annually,
term?
Normally in January.
Okay.
But we failed to post it on the agenda in January,
Okay.
so that's why we're doing it in February. Yeah.
We're training here.
Yes, this is good. Look, yes, welcome. Okay,
Welcome.
Hi.
I didn't know you were training. I guess I should have asked. That was rude.
Introduce yourself.
I
while
have
we
a
wait
welcome
for-
planned. I have a welcome plan.
Oh, okay.
I gave a brief reprieve, which I didn't realize was extended to Scott, but you took advantage.
Okay, this is our new office administrator, Raylan Olson. This is Kimberly Lawson, Justin Campy, McKenna Marchant,
Close enough.
Champy.
Champy.
It's fine.
Sorry. And this is Scott
Yeah.
Buchanan.
How do you say it?
It's actually champion.
We're missing one planning commissioner. His name is
I
Rich
like that.
Christiansen,
That's good.
and he's traveling right now, so he's not at this meeting.
He's probably the nicest one.
By far.
That's really kind, because he's not here.
It's not you.
Oh, it's not me.
Whatever. It's not Scott.
Scott's very nice.
He's nice.
No, but
think
Rich
Rich
is
is the
like
nicest?
Rich is totally
crazy
the
nice.
nicest.
He is nice, but I don't know if I would.
Are we voting on this? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I
Hey
Don't.
Kathy, can I call you back? I'm in the middle of a meeting.
Okay, we're gonna make a
Okay,
vote.
bye.
Kim made a motion to have Justin as the chair and Rich as the vice. And I seconded it. Okay. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
You guys realize like this is not like
Just say
I.
You're sitting here.
I did.
Kim made the
And I
And,
motion.
and McKenna seconded it.
Quickest motion of the night.
And
Stick with the status quo here.
You know what? It's because they don't want to sit here.
I'll tell you,
Because we have a former, and it is not easy, is it? It is not easy.
I will just say, you have done a fantastic job. I'm serious. I was talking to Katie about this earlier today.
I do feel
I've been
bad for
learning a
some
lot
of the
from you.
members of the public. You keep them quite on task.
Yeah.
You're doing your job.
That's the thing. Like, if we go too far off the rails,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock. Like, and you guys know me. Like, I got a bedtime.
It's 9:18. Why are you still
We
talking?
need to be
Yeah, let's
efficient.
keep going, keep going.
So,
Approval of minutes.
I have reviewed the minutes, and it appears the grammar issues from prior were corrected. So I vote that the minutes be, or I motion that the minutes be approved.
Okay, hold on one second. So are you talking about the minutes from September?
Yeah, what
We
minutes?
also have January minutes from
Were
last
they
meeting.
combined and I just
And-
missed
Well,
it?
did all the
have to do
spelling
verbatim
errors
minutes?
get
This is
fixed on the
so
September
mean.
one, do you know?
We don't.
We should.
I did not see minutes in the packet for February. Did I miss it?
I make a motion to include all minutes that were included. in the
January's,
Yeah,
January's
so I've
are in the
got-
Dropbox.
Yeah, so when I look here, so I should go back and. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
And
Yeah,
they are in
so
Dropbox too.
I don't have email working on mine,
They're
so
not
I
in
didn't
mine.
get them.
Let me know. They are in Dropbox. I put them in Dropbox.
Where are they at?
I didn't see them.
Okay, let me pull up my Dropbox.
Because I read like 30 pages of minutes. Where
That's where it was. I hope they didn't disappear, because that has happened before, just
Yeah, I've got them
randomly.
right here from Suzanne.
You got them?
I'm not kidding. That's when I was like, all right, fine. No
It's the
more
hardest
double
and longest
motions.
set of minutes in 21 years.
I did. As I was reading through, I was like, it's
Okay.
totally my fault.
Here they are, Francis City Planning Commission meeting, 1/6/2005. 1/16/2005.
Well, that's the 30 pager, right?
That's the 30 pager.
And in the 30 pages that I read, it appeared to be an accurate reflection, so I will accept those, but I did not see September, so
Okay, so we're motioning on the January minutes.
I will
then.
motion that we submit January.
We approve the January
We
minutes?
approve the January minutes. God, it's getting.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, well, the 30 pager's in the books. I don't know what to do about September, because,
Did you bring in your comments?
hmm?
You said you were gonna bring in comments, and I didn't see you do that.
No, I didn't do that.
Okay, let's bring those
failed.
in, and then we'll get those cleaned up.
Okay, so
So we don't need to make a motion on them tonight. It's fine, we'll take care of that next
it's been
time.
this long, might as well.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
And all the ones from before September that you've seen have been approved?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
So we just, as far as I'm concerned, we
Scott,
just
did you
have
find it?
September and February hanging in the wind.
October and November as well.
Not
But-
there.
Yeah.
She did say that she.
So we have,
Maybe she
we
just
still
did
have
it.
September, October, November
But I don't know
outstanding.
why,
Access. in-
I thought my
Engineering.
comments were about the errors, were grammatical errors in
So
January.
it's not under the full.
No, because you wouldn't have had January's. Let me go
You
back
had
to
that
last
comment in
time.
January?
Looks like you
So
have
the
it.
last Dropbox we had,
Because you couldn't have made it.
September's minutes.
You're right.
This was January's Dropbox, we had September minutes, and that's where you said you needed to make some corrections.
Yeah, it was just grammar.
No, so I still don't see it. So
Okay.
it's what I found it is.
So
Okay.
don't worry about those,
Yeah,
let's
it's
bring in the
not-
comments and we'll try to get those next time.
Okay,
Okay.
My
If you wanna
email's
send them to
broken.
me, I'll make sure they're changed so they're good for recognition.
yeah, let's talk after.
Okay, next.
All right, so that we're good on the minutes. We got a motion on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh my goodness, too many things going on. Okay, staff
update.
updates, yes. Raylan Olson, welcome. Welcome to Francis City. And you're gonna
Where you
see a
from?
lot more of her, so.
What's that? Where are you
Maybe.
from? Where do you live?
I live in Francis.
Oh, convenient, nice commute.
From the Draper, Cindy Draper area originally, Bluffdale.
How long have you been here?
Very short time.
Good. Oh, yeah, okay. Well,
Okay.
she can give her elevator pitch.
Yeah. All right, last time in our last meeting, Rich, as part of one of his motions, recommended a moratorium. And that was discussed at the last city council meeting. The city council has decided and approved given direction, that would be better to say. They've given direction to move forward with what's called a pending ordinance rule. So that means that we are actively working on code updates in Title 18, which is our development code, and we are pausing applications. We won't be processing applications for conditional use permits, any commercial development, or any city center development.
So what about the hotel that came to us in January? So now that there's that pause, they can't come again?
No. So any application that is already submitted is vested.
So they're vested
They are vested, yep. So we have to continue their application
under our.
under the current code, but anything in the future will be under our new code.
Gross.
Okay.
What if they resubmit? What if they change something and we say, no, you have to resubmit?
That's a good legal question, and I don't know.
You'll have an answer for us later.
I don't know if I will, but I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. How about that?
Okay.
If we come to it, okay? All right, speaking of that other development, they were supposed to be on the agenda tonight, but we had a very long meeting, and so in the interest of everyone's sanity, we need to schedule a second meeting for this month or early next month. So I'm actually looking at the first week of March. Hold on, I thought I could pull up the calendar there, but no can do. So looking at the first week of March, I would like to schedule a meeting, a special meeting of the Planning Commission, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday that week. What is your all's availability for that? And I think, I can't guarantee this, but I think that if we do that, we might not have a regular meeting that month, so we might
You
not
don't
have to.
wanna wait till the third Thursday to do it?
No, because they were supposed to be on this agenda, so we need to schedule one sooner than later.
I can only do it on the 5th.
Okay, so McKenna says that Wednesday the 5th would work for her.
It works for me.
I mean, it's Ash Wednesday, but okay.
Okay, that works for you? Okay.
Man, shouldn't we be respectful of religious?
We should.
If that's a religious conflict, we can be, but
No, it's
you're
fine.
okay with that, okay. So I'm going to move forward with scheduling a meeting on Wednesday, March 5th for the Planning Commission. I will keep you updated. Okay.
I'm so sorry, Justin. I ruined that.
That's okay.
All right. Sorry, I'm just, don't want to.
No, this is actually kind of my doing, because I think that we don't become, it's just human nature, we're not as effective 3 and 4 hours in, and
Yeah.
I just,
absolutely.
like, I asked Katie, like, we just need to limit it, and my feedback at the time, even that night, was that if that means I gotta come back and do a special session for an action item, then it is what it is, but,
It's too hard to do minutes that long, too.
yeah. And
You
and
should
so,
not
like,
have
we
to
need
do
to,
that.
just, like, I mean, it's kind of the commitment, right?
I think it's respectful to us, staff, and the public.
Right, like, we're already teetering on, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, last thing that I wanted to talk about is the, I don't know why I wrote this on here, I wrote code amendment twice. Oh, yeah, that was the other thing. So, most of you will remember that last meeting, there was an ordinance going from 3 to 4 stories in the city center zone. I wanted to give you an update on that. That was tabled by the city council. They had a tie vote, and so they tabled it until they have a full quorum present to be able to vote on that. Okay?
What was our recommendation on that?
Negative 4-1.
And they tied?
They did.
And they're elected by the people?
Yeah, 2-2, so they needed the missing council member to be there to break the tie.
Okay.
So it goes again in March, right?
It is on the agenda in March. If we have a quorum there, if we don't have a quorum, then we can't really bring it back. I mean, maybe, no, I don't think we could. That was part of the motion, that there had to be a full quorum. Okay, so that is it for me. Unless you all have any questions that I can answer while we're here. I'm sure you just are dying to talk more.
All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
Second.
Aye.
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 Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Planning Commission. Appreciate your
Thank you.
long suffering.